I've looked everywhere.
He's got to be here somewhere. Look again.
Takes it wide, takes a shot, he scores! Kyle Palmieri, just 2 goals with the Islanders after the trade deadline, scores 8 minutes into the first game of the playoffs.
I found him.
Where?
There.
3.5 to go here in OT. Palmieri with a shot, he scores! Kyle Palmieri, his second today, and the Islanders take game 1.
It's amazing how just somebody can be discovered after having 2 goals the entire season with a team. Welcome back to All Things Rangers, everybody. I am Mark Williams, your host. Thank you for sticking with us. If you were standing by with our delays, a little bit of technical difficulties we were having today. I am joined by the man who will go Super Saiyan on Thanos and at any moment, Mr. John Filkowski.
Well, that's a tall order, but maybe a little Final Flash, maybe a little Kamehameha, but no snaps here.
All right. And I'm also joined by the man who couldn't get enough of the Game 1 victory on Sunday, Mr. Anthony Larocco.
Split in Pittsburgh. We could be happy about that, Isles fans.
Well, it's exactly that. We are going to be going over that split in Pittsburgh first. A little bit odd for a usually Rangers podcast to be leading with the Islanders, but that's what we got to do. So the story of Game 1, Ilya Sorokin, 39 saves. Him and Kyle Palmieri stealing Game 1 for the Pittsburgh Penguins. A goal and 2 assists by Jean-Gabriel Pageau. Brock Nelson with the go-ahead goal with 3 minutes remaining or so. Roughly. I should have known that. What was it?
It was a little more, maybe like almost 4, but close enough. Yeah, it was.
But 31 seconds later, Kasperi Kapanen had to tie the game to force overtime. So that recaps Game 1, as you saw. Kyle Palmieri, the overtime winning goal. Game 2, the Pittsburgh Penguins get 2 goals in the first period. A little bit of help from Semyon Varlamov on the first one. He looked like he could be playing second base for the Mets right now. And although he was solid the rest of the way, you don't want to kill him too much after that. Give the guy a break. He hasn't seen a puck in 8 days. So right now, the Islanders are tied with the Pittsburgh Penguins 1-1 in the series. Anthony, you first. What is your impressions of the series so far?
Well, I'll start with Game 1. Game 1, the cliche for playoff hockey is you got to weather the storm, right? When you're the team's building, they're going to come out flying. They say as long as you don't give up a goal in the first 10 minutes, and then you play a nice road game after that. And the Islanders did more than that. They scored before that 10-minute mark. And then, they did let Pittsburgh score to tie the game a couple of minutes later, but they weathered that early storm. And that first goal was huge for them, kind of quieted down the Penguins crowd. Pittsburgh then, later on took the lead in that game with a 2-1 victory, but the fact is they did their job in the first period. And let's talk about, Ilya Sorokin. He was awesome that game, especially in the second period when the Islanders were getting out skated. He held them in the game. And even before that, in the first period, Marc, he made that toe save on Crosby, which if he lets that in, it's 2-1 going into the second. And then the Penguins scored that goal in the second. So it could have been a 3-1 lead. So that was a huge stop to keep it tied at the end of the first. And then in the second period, again, he was outstanding. That Crosby goal, no one did anything wrong in that play. Green played him tough in front of the net. That was just Crosby with a one-handed deflection while he's tied up to redirect the puck. So that beats
unbelievable.
Then after that, the Islanders got to their game in the third period. And didn't it help them that Tristan Jarry was just weak? Every goal the Islanders have scored on in this series has been on his glove side. So there's the book on him. But Pageau had a huge goal to tie the game. Then Nelson scored, take the lead. It was unfortunate they gave it back how many seconds it was later, but they didn't relent. And then in overtime, they played their typical Islander hockey. They waited for Pittsburgh to make a mistake. They were sound defensively. Pageau took advantage of a Penguins defenseman. I don't know who was in the corner, but he, stick checked it, lifted his stick, picked his pocket, and then hit Palmieri, and Palmieri beat Jarry. Should he have stopped it? I mean, I think so, but it was still a good shot. Palmieri put that, as Butch Goring says, in the toy department. So, it was a great game one. They had the lead, and going into game two, this is the biggest, I think, critique that you could give is, why did they go to Semyon Varlamov in game two? Sorokin was outstanding in game one. As I said, he's one of the reasons why they won that game. Even yesterday morning in practice, he shared, he had his net to himself. And as you guys know, for teams that have three goalies, doesn't happen very often. But over the last couple of years, we've seen it with the Rangers and Islanders. When it happens, two goalies that are sharing a net, usually it means they're not starting. The starter gets one net all to himself. And that happened with Sorokin. So it looked like he was going to start. And for whatever reason, I would love to know what happened, whether it was, Varlamov said, hey, I'm feeling good. I really want to go. And he changed his mind, or he was just playing mind games with Pittsburgh. I don't know. But, you saw the rust of Varlamov from the start. I mean, that first goal, face fells, that was beer league level stuff. Our friend Goldberg would have stopped that. I mean, I don't know what he was thinking. Like, he just totally.
I think Goldberg from the Mighty Ducks would have stopped that.
Yeah.
And I'm talking about either him tied up on the net or high on net.
Are we talking about like current day Sean Weiss? Because current day Sean Weiss might have been able to stop that too.
Again, either would have been there.
It's not like he didn't even see the puck. It looked like he did see it. He just kind of just whiffed on it. Like he just, I don't know. He just looked shaky in the beginning. Even that second goal, that was more so porous defensive coverage. But even that, he looked a little uncomfortable. He got beat between the the legs on that one. But then after that, he settled down. And so, like Mark, you said, you can't beat him up too much. But then again, this is playoff hockey. You can't afford to be letting in goals like that. And the fact is, he stops that first goal. You're talking a 1-1 game going into overtime, and who knows? Maybe the Islanders could be up 2-0 right now. So that was disappointing. But the fact is, they didn't. They only scored one goal, so they got a couple decent chances on Jarry. Nothing terrific, but even the saves that Jarry made, he looked shaky too. There were a couple times where he made a save, he left a rebound there, and the Islanders either fluffed it or missed the net, or so. It's like Jarry's not a good goalie. I think we all said it going in. He's the weakest goalie of all the playoff teams. He showed it in game one, and in game two he was a little better, but he didn't beat the Islanders by any stretch of the imagination. The Islanders beat themselves really. So yeah, but 1-1 going back to the Coliseum. As an Islander fan, you can't be disappointed. I think no one knew that this was going to be a sweep. That wasn't really on the table, so you can't be disappointed that we dropped that game last night. But it just could have gone differently had some certain circumstances didn't play out the way it did. But overall, I'm feeling good going into game 3 tomorrow. It's at the barn. Islanders have a huge advantage there. They're one of the best teams at home this season. They're 21-4-3, which is an outstanding home record. So home cooking. Even the barn at 50% capacity tomorrow is going to be rocking. And the Islanders just got to bring their game to Pittsburgh now. So we'll see what happens starting with game 3. But those are kind of my overall takes in the first 2 games.
Before I move over to John to get his thoughts real quick, we were talking about the 3 goalie rotation. I can tell you, of course, by being a Ranger fan last year, watching the 3 goalie rotation, it does not work ever. And we'll get into more on that in a minute. But and I'll give my thoughts on the goaltending situation. But Mr. Fikowski, jump on in.
I mean, Anthony summarized it pretty well. You were talking about, Jarry just, and I even said the same thing. I was like, Jarry is just not a good goaltender. He was probably my pick for the worst goaltender of all the teams in the playoffs. I just don't like him. I think Pittsburgh has to play incredible defense in front of them like they played for a better part of last night's game in order to win that series. Honestly, though, this series could be 2-0 for either team. It really could. I mean, if Sorokin doesn't make some of the big stops he made in the earlier parts of game 1, then you're looking at a Pittsburgh league, and we just know how the Islanders are playing from behind. They're just not the same team. Game 2 showed it. You can't afford to have your goaltender giving up softies when you're a team that plays better with the lead like the Islanders do. they're like a vice grip when they get that lead, especially if it's a 2-goal lead or more. Forget about it at that point. So, Varlamov giving up the softies that he gave up was just kind of weird to see. I get he's rusty, but you got to be better than that come playoff time. Doesn't matter. If you're stepping in, if you wanted to be that guy, you had to make sure that you were ready and that you were not rusty, and he was rusty. And you know what? I don't
Ironically, by the way, giving up a goal to Brian Rust and being rusty.
Well, I mean, he had a nice giveaway of his own that was kind of just what was going on there. What was he thinking? That's what I'd like to know on his giveaway. But I would really love to know the real reasoning behind Barry Trotz going with Semyon Varlamov over Ilya Sorokin, because Ilya Sorokin actually looked really good in game one. Got to give him a lot of credit. He definitely outperformed the expectations that I had for him. I thought he would be good, but he was a lot closer to great than he was to good. So I would say that he made some incredible saves. I would say that the Islanders in the second half of that game definitely clamped down and started playing their game and got away from Pittsburgh. But in game two, they wanted to play track meet with them. And that was the one thing I said that they could not do in this series, get into a track meet or a shootout with them. And they got into it, and they got down in that game early on. So, I mean, like I said, you could be looking at a 2-0 series lead either way. If you're the Islanders, I would say that, with shaky goaltending in the second game, the split isn't terrible. This game is probably the most pivotal game of the series right now. I think whoever wins this game is probably going to win this series in game 3 tomorrow. So we're just looking at, I would say also, just a big moment in this series between these two teams. And it's funny, I was talking about Brandon Tanev before the start of the series and how he was probably going to be like an X factor, someone that really to kind of like look out for, to kind of bring some energy and some controversy to the series. And lo and behold, last night he's lunging for that puck. And it's funny because I've seen the complaints about it all over, and I get it. You don't want to see that happen to your goalie. From Tanev's point of view or from the Pittsburgh point of view, if you're that forward, you're going to lunge on that puck. You're going to try to get that puck. You're not trying if you're not looking for that. But it's such a low percentage play that unless you're somebody like Sidney Crosby or Steve Yzerman in his prime, because if you've ever seen that goal, that was on the Barrasso that he scored years ago in the, I would say, the mid-90s. I mean, you're probably not scoring that, but again, I totally see why he did it, but I can see why they would want to pummel his face into the damn ice, because I would too at that point. I'm going to protect my goalie. So, I mean, this is going to get real interesting. I would say for the Islanders, what they're going to have to do is they're going to have to play their game and not take retaliatory penalties, because guys like Crosby can get under your skin. Someone like Tanev is definitely getting under their skin. That's for sure. And a little vice versa. You saw it there in that scrum. So this is going to get nastier as it goes. And I think game 3 is going to be a very nasty game. So I'm actually really looking forward to it, because with the Tampa-Florida series, and I know we're going to talk more about that a little later on, with that series being as intense and as physical as it is, I mean, if the Islanders and Penguins have a game 3 like they've had any of their first 2 games, it's going to be a real fun game to watch as a hockey fan.
As the way that I've been describing it the last few days to people, I watched game 1 and thought in the first 2 periods, how the hell are the Islanders going to win this series? I have no idea how that was going to happen. Then I watched the 3rd period and thought, how the hell are the Penguins going to win this series? It was amazing to me just watching those things happen, just as it's going back and forth. And that's when you know it's a little bit more evenly played. The power plays for both of these teams have done absolutely nothing. And for a 65% penalty kill or 35% power play for the Islanders in the regular season, versus the Penguins and a 25% power play for the Penguins versus the Islanders. I mean, none of these power plays, they look like they know what they're doing. And one of them's got Sidney Crosby on it. The other one's got Matt Barzal. How is that even possible? So that's two of the impressions that I have already right there. Tristan Jarry, that's that goal Bailey had. I never saw a goalie try to make a glove save with his elbow. Really? Do you hate your glove that much? Like, how is this guy? I'm almost want to bring back up the numbers. I think he's got 25 wins on the season. I have 25 wins when all you got to do is shoot at the glove. Shoots it down. He doesn't snap it up. He doesn't even hold it up there like a blocker, the way like Henrik Lundqvist would. Like, how does this guy wins? I'm really trying to figure this one out.
He might be the worst glove hand in the NHL right now.
Oh my God. And then like the Palmieri thing, give credit for Palmieri for a good shot on that first goal, but he's sort of doing an impression of early 2010s Marc-Andre Fleury. Hey, nice try, but I dodged your shot again. But it's sort of like I just don't understand how this is happening with Pittsburgh. And I mean, I give him all the credit in the world for coming back. He looked better last night, if that makes any sense. And Pittsburgh kept the Islanders to the outside. They're going to have to do that a lot more because any puck can go in on this guy. So that's what the Islanders have learned. Because that's also what I'm about to actually ask you guys right now. I'll start with you, Anthony. What have we learned from the series?
Yeah, hold on. Yeah.
Okay. John, what have we learned from the series?
I mean, we learned that Jarry is worse than I actually thought he was. I mean, you can say that he played better in game 2, but I mean, how much better did he actually play, or was it the Pittsburgh defense playing better in front of him, which I think they did. I think the Pittsburgh Penguins can actually kind of hang with the Islanders and play that style if they have to. Would they prefer not to play that? Of course. But, I mean, we've also learned that the Islanders need to play with the lead. I think if they get down by 1 or 2 goals in a later point in the game, I don't think they have the capability to win a game from behind at that point. So I would actually say that they need to be in the lead at all points in the series. I know it sounds so obvious, like John Madden-ish, but like they really are that different of a team without the lead. So I would say, if anything, the Islanders need to be in front. They need to be in control. They need to start. They need to start better too. I don't like the starts that they've had in these first couple of games. Like I know that they got the lead in game 1, but that shot, I'm sorry, it was a good shot, but that shouldn't have gone in. That was just Jarry being Jarry at that point. So I don't want to discredit Kyle Palmieri, but like I said, it was a good shot, but I think a better goaltender stops that. So
back to you, Anthony. What have we learned so far in this series?
I think we learned that, kind of what we said when we were previewing the series. The Islanders aren't known to be a real high scoring team, but they do have a lot of depth, like a lot of guys that can score, over the course of an 82 game season, score 20 goals, so like Palmieri, Pageau, Walsh from line was awesome in game 1. Nelson scored while Beauvillier didn't score in game 1. He was all over the place, had a couple of really good opportunities.
And game 2.
Yeah. And game 2. And their fourth line was their fourth line. They played hard, they crashed and banged. So really, I think it kind of learned that the Islanders can score goals on these Penguins teams. What they need to do now is Barzal and Eberle need to show up, because those are the 2 guys that haven't brought anything to the table yet. And to win the series, it's nice that, Pageau and Palmieri are going, and Beauvillier and Nelson are going with Bailey, but Barzal and Eberle need to make their presence known starting tomorrow. Because that just makes them a really dangerous team. If Barzal and Eberle get going, and now that they have contributions from their top 3 big lines, that's going to go a long way. And the other thing is that, as far as as Pittsburgh goes, is that the Penguins, can still hurt you without Crosby being, very prolific. I mean, I don't know if he had a point last night. But if he didn't, so far he just has that one goal. But that means they're just winning with guys like Brian Rust scoring and Freddie Gaudreau scored the other day. So the Islanders just need to also not just Keon and Crosby. They need to play hard on all the other Penguins lines. And the last time I know Filk had mentioned earlier, but he's really wants to know what the reason was for starting Varlamov. They asked him in the media after the game, and he said, "Well, Varlamov has been a number one all year," which is true. Then he referenced that he had 7 shutouts and said that he's been their team MVP. So being that he was healthy, it was an easy decision. And I disagree with Trotz there a little bit. The playoffs is a different game. Momentum's big in the playoffs. When you have a guy like Ilya Sorokin that played really, really well and beat a team, why not go back to him in game 2? Worst thing that happens is you lose, and it's 1-1, which is where we are right now, and then you can go back to Varlamov. Now, it makes it so much harder to go back to Sorokin, because now if he pulls the plug on Varlamov, it's gonna be like, try to pull the plug on his number one. What's going on here, and it's more of like controversy. So I think the easier thing would have been to do is give Varlamov another day of rest and practice, and start Sorokin. And I just don't know why. Well, I get why he said why, but I just don't understand it, and I don't agree with it. I think Sorokin should have been the guy for sure. And now I doubt he goes back in unless Varlamov gets hurt or really sucks. I think he's going to stick with Varlamov. So we'll have to see what happens though.
Well, I mean, I've learned that it's for everything to happen in this series, you need to make sure you limit your opponents to the outside. Pittsburgh's been getting into the inside and getting more shots. I think they've had 40 shots in both of these games so far. And I also think that, Pittsburgh's been dominating in the zone time, but not dominating as far as like turning that zone time into quality chances. The Islanders have been kind of not possessing it as much. I think they need to work the Pittsburgh defense down low and play really more Islanders hockey, grind it out. That's the way they've been doing it, and that's the way it's been working so far. What out of this series has surprised you guys so far? John, I'm going to start with you again.
Wow. I would say it's been Pittsburgh's ability to try to play more of an Islanders type game. I mean, these really haven't been too much of a run and gun type game, and that's what they want. They want that. Also, I would say Pittsburgh's depth. I mean, Jeff Carter has actually been really good. I know that he hasn't put up a lot of points so far, but Jeff Carter's line has been really good for them. So Pittsburgh's depth, their defense, minus a couple of moments, has actually been pretty good. Cody Ceci actually made 2 or 3 pretty good plays last night, and I've referred to Cody Ceci in the past as one of the worst defenders in the NHL. Because I mean, the eye test and the advanced stats would tell you that he is, but I mean, he's made a couple of really good plays in this series so far, mostly in game 2. So I was kind of surprised by that as well. So, I mean, I would say the depth pieces so far, really, and then Pittsburgh not trying to turn it into a complete all-out slugfest offensively, because that's what they would be looking for, but they haven't really tried to force the issue there, and they've still hung in these games, and it's been really close. So those would be my answers.
Anthony?
I'm going to go with the play of Kyle Palmieri. I know when we did the preview, I used him as my most
line player.
Yeah. Because it's really hard to just raise your game just on a switch. But that's what it seemed like he's done in these 2 playoff games. He's played a heavy game. He's played physical. He's been tenacious on the forecheck, in the corners, and he's driving the net. He's scoring goals. he looks like a different player. So I don't know if this is, big game moments. He's just stepping up. Maybe with missing the playoffs with the Devils for so many years, he's just amped up to play in the playoffs. But he looks night and day better than he did during the regular season. So he keeps playing like this. It's going to be really great for the Islanders. So, but yeah, I would say how effective he's been. I know he's a good player. I knew that he had the possibility of doing good things in the playoffs. But the fact that he just kind of like I said, turned the switch immediately has just surprised me a lot, and I'm here for it. It's great news for the Islanders.
My first joke I'm going to say is that I didn't know Jocelyn Tebow was still playing in the league. Thank you, Tristan Jarry. It's just, well, I guess what's kind of surprising me is Pittsburgh's depth. I know the Islanders had depth, and I know that. I mean, also, by the way, 2 goals on Pulock and Pelech last night, and that's an achievement in its own. So it's, I'd have to say Pittsburgh's depth is kind of surprising, but they really need Evgeny Malkin to get back in this series, because it's different having Evgeny Malkin between Zucker and I don't know if it's Ruedel who he's been playing with, or maybe even that's where Freddie Gaudreau moves to. He slots to the right wing. It's different having him centering those guys than Freddie Gaudreau doing it. I understand he's got a goal in the series, but sometimes, I mean, I'm going to get to my player that needs to step up, most disappointing player, in a minute. But actually, you know what? I'll start it right now. What's disappointing you so far? And I got to say, Chris Letang, this guy's got a Norris Trophy. I mean, he had a 4-on-2 last night and completely missed the pass to Jason Zucker, who was sitting there going, "Come on, give me a hand. I haven't been doing anything all series." So there's that. Anthony, you ready for this? Do you know the last time Chris Letang registered a point in the NHL playoffs? Game 1, 2019, in the 4-game sweep to the Islanders. He had the assist on the goal. I think it was the Kessel goal that tied the game before it went to overtime. Are you kidding?
It's crazy.
He's got a Norris Trophy.
Yeah.
You might want to, yeah, okay, everybody. Yeah, well, Mark, he's not the player he once was. Okay. Can you be at least 10% of that player anymore? Like, I mean, he's still the anchor of their defense. So, all right, let's reverse this around. Anthony, who's been disappointed? What's been disappointing you most right now?
Well, I referenced it before. Barzal and Eberle need to be better. They haven't generated much. Barzal looked a little better in last night. In the third period, he was hounding pucks a little bit more, caused a couple of turnovers, but he needs to be more prolific. He needs to get more chances, create more chances. I understand being on the road that he was facing the Dumoulin Letang pair. So maybe now that he's at home, Trotz will get him away for those two. So maybe that will help. But if you remember in 2019, Eberle in particular killed Pittsburgh. And Barzal was playing with him, and then too. So the two of them need to get going. Because, like I said, if they get going along with the good play they're getting from their other lines, that's going to be really difficult for Pittsburgh to handle, especially with the way they just come at you in waves. So yeah, Barzal needs to get to his game. He needs his skating, his edge work to it.
And I think we had Anthony freeze for a second. So John, jump right in.
It's funny because I was going to say Matt.
See him and put them on the brink. So,
we got Anthony back
for me.
Okay. So it was Eberle and Barzal. You got it.
Yeah. I was going to say Barzal too, but if anything for me, it's got to be Tristan Jarry, who's. I mean, I know that my expectations of him were low. But, I mean, if you want to win a playoff series, you got to be better than what he's done so far. To me, he really hasn't been good. He was better in Game 2 than he was in Game 1. I would say he's probably been the most disappointing player in the series so far for either team. And Semyon Varlamov would have been right there with him. But, I mean, the thing that's disappointing me most for the Islanders so far is probably Barry Trotz, because I really don't get how you went away from Sorokin. And I know I don't like questioning a guy that's going to be a Hall of Fame coach. It's not David Quinn where I can be like, well, what are you doing not playing Lafreniere on your power play when your power play is struggling and you have Colin Blackwell there because of his unsustainable 20-plus shooting percentage? You know, this is not that type of situation. This is a Hall of Fame bound coach, going to be one of the better coaches of all time, probably a top 5 to 10 at least. So I don't like questioning him, but I have to wonder why. I really want to know more than the lip service that was given, because it just doesn't make sense to me. So I'm going to say for Pittsburgh, it's going to be Jari. For the Islanders, Trotz.
More, by the way, talking Sorokin in a little bit. So who got that didn't sound good. I don't know where that was, whose house that was.
It's good.
Yeah, all we needed was the scream that they put in all the Star Wars movies. I forgot the name of that sound effect. Ah! All right, guys, and the last question before we close out the Islanders segment. Game 3, who needs to step up? And Anthony.
Well, I mean, I said Barzell, but just to steer away from that, I would say that, you know, the bottom pairing for the Islanders, and they maybe need to step up a little bit. I mean, Mayfield had a good game 2. Game 1, he wasn't so good. Him and Leddy. Leddy had that really bad giveaway that led to the Crosby goal. He just kind of passed it low to high and passed it to the wrong team when he passed it high. And then they scored right after that. So, you know, they just need to be better with the puck, smarter decisions. You know, I think, I know we mentioned Pulock allowed a goal the other day, but Pulock had he whipped on the puck. He went right to Russ. But then again, Varlamov should have stopped it. So we wouldn't ever be talking about that if Varlamov just did his job. But still, they're going to give you a good effort every time they're out there. But Leddy Mayfield pair need to step up, give them some relief when they can't be out there against Crosby, even though they're going to be at home. So it shouldn't happen much. But it will be a relief for them if they can get a little breather sometimes from playing away from him. But, yeah, they just need to be smarter, make smarter puck decisions, and then, you know, just play their game, because Leddy, when he's going, he's fast. He moves the puck really well. You know, that helps the Islanders a lot. So they just need to get going.
John.
I mean, I'm going to say for Pittsburgh, probably Jason Zucker. He needs to be something other than invisible. I don't think I've really seen him do much in this series at all. So he's got to be better. For the Islanders, I'm going to say Barry Trotz, because he's going to have to address this goaltending issue, and he's going to have to get it figured out real quick. Because if this lingers, then that could be the downfall for them. And remember, I picked Islanders in 6, and I didn't think that there would be a goaltending controversy or anything like that. So Barry Trotz has got to make sure that this team is ready for Game 3. They come out absolutely flying, and they got to get on Pittsburgh early. They got to get an early 1 or 2 goal lead, I would say, by the end of the first period, and really start to clamp down and play their game. But that goaltending issue has to be addressed first and foremost. So they try.
One small problem about having 2 brilliant co-hosts, especially when you delegate out duties such as Anthony's handling the Islanders, I'm handling Pittsburgh, and John gets to name both. When the motherfucker ends up naming my guy, it was supposed to be Jason Zucker as well. Jason Zucker was completely invisible. So now I got to come up with a new name, and my new name is Evgeny Malkin. I don't know what's going on with you. Are you hurt? Are you injured? Are you just aching a little bit? You don't want to ever pick on a guy that can't get into the lineup. But you're a Stanley Cup champion. You've been through a lot of this before. If it's a problem with injury, don't risk the rest of your life. if you're just a little bit hurt, get back on. And I think, and again, I think they're erring on the side of caution with Malkin, so that's probably it. And of course, I'm saying all this on the fly. Who knows? I'm not his body, so I don't know how he feels. We also want to know what you guys think. We've had some of the comments already. One of them I'll be sharing again during the next segment on the Rangers. But we want to know who needs to step up for the Islanders? Who's surprising you? What have you learned from this series besides Kristen Jarry doesn't have a left hand? Literally, I mean, is there even a left hand there? Anyway,
hole in the glove.
And don't forget, of course, to like, share, and subscribe. And yes, by the way, every time I ever missed the ball playing baseball, or even when my brief time being a goalie when I was a kid, you always blame the glove first. It's just how it works. All right. To our second topic of the day, guys, the tenure of Jeff Gorton ended 2 weeks ago during our broadcast. I still love sharing that video, especially me looking down going, oh, wait, what? and also how quickly we eliminated that question of the Minnesota Wild being in trouble for Vegas. So just to talk about the Jeff Gorton era and how that went, sure, you can look at a lot of things that are positives. He acquired Mika Zibanejad. He got Artemi Panarin and Adam Fox. He made the roster younger. Got them out of some cap hell. But more positives, the Rick Nash trade, which netted Ryan Lindgren, Ryan Strome, and Keandre Miller. And then you got some negatives. The Ryan McDonough trade looks to be a total fail. Nils Lundqvist pending. Drafting Elias Anderson over Marnie Nikish. Wait, I said it wrong. Nakish.
Natchez.
See, by the way, do you remember Stanislav Neskash, who was spelled N?
He was with terrible with the Rangers.
Yeah, he was good with Ottawa. And then some moves that are kind of debatable. You got the Jacob Trouba trade, the Brady Shea extension, Philip Hedl, and the entire Kevin Shattenkirk tenure. But John, I'm going to start with you. What do you really think when you're thinking back to Jeff Gorton? Now, again, I think we're all on the segment. We wouldn't have fired him, right?
I don't know. I mean, I've had people on social media tell me that his job was on the hot seat, and I didn't believe that. I really didn't. I thought that he would have gotten another season or two to work with, and if he didn't make it after next season, he would have been fired. But it was weird how that just came out of nowhere. It just really goes to show you that there were some major philosophical differences between Gorton and Davidson and Dolan and Sather, because we all know Sather is in Dolan's ear. That's definitely how all this happened, because James Dolan has admitted on several occasions that he does not know his ass from a hole in the ground when it comes to hockey. Not that he knows it basketball, but he's worse off.
No, it's in the corner.
I will say that if anything, I don't know. It's really tough for me to say, because he did. I mean, like you said, he got some youth in here, but some of the positive moves that he did, like the Adam Fox trade, that fell into his lap. Artemi Panarin wanting to play here fell into his lap. I mean, I'm not going to sit there and say that the Jacob Trouba trade was atrocious, because I really don't think Neil Pionk would have ever prospered here. And I think we'd be looking at him and saying, oh, well, we need to get a bigger guy who's more physical and who's more of a two-way guy than Neil Pionk. I mean, would Neil Pionk help the team's power play? Maybe. But were you really going to have him on there over Adam Fox? No. And that's another thing. So I'm not going to say the Trouba trade is a total loss for them. I don't like the Trouba contract. I understand why they gave him 8, but I feel like they kind of bid against himself because he really only wanted to be here. That's another thing. He wanted to be here. So why are you bidding against yourselves when you have a guy that wants to be here? Squeeze him for 7. Keep him under 7 if you can. Listen, I know that he was going to get a raise, but you don't have to go from 6 to 8. You could have went from 6 to 7 and kept him there. The Brendan Smith signing was a really bad signing. I mean, that contract was just awful. Drafting Elias Anderson was, again, a panic move. I've said this. I know I've said this several times to Anthony. I've probably said it to you in the past, Mark, but that was a panic move in getting Elias Pettersson stolen from them. And who knows how different everything looks if they have Elias Pettersson. Maybe there's no Alexei Lafreniere here at this point. So
that's a good point too.
Yeah, I mean, you'd have a young potential franchise center there, but you probably wouldn't have that first overall pick.
We'll go into the luck factor on that in a little bit in our next segment. But Andy, I'll go with you first. What do you think about the Jeff Gorton era?
I mean, John said it really well. A lot of the positives that you look at, like Panarin wanted to play for the Rangers. So that was the easy signing for him. Fox wanted to play for the Rangers. So a lot of the moves he made, it was kind of just him having to facilitate it because the pieces of it happening were already laid. But you can't also overlook the fact that he did have a really fast rebuild. The Rangers are a competitive team. He pushed a lot of the right buttons. I would think my biggest gripe with him, aside from like the McDonough trade, is just re-signing Chris Kreider for the amount of money that he did. It's you could see it from a mile away when you have a player like Kreider, who's obviously not old, but he's aging a little bit. And when you give a guy 7 years, right? When you give a guy a 7-year contract,
7 years, 6.5 per.
Yeah, 6.5 per.
So when you give a guy a 7-year contract that that's getting older, you're just setting yourself up for in 2 to 3 years, the guy's game is going to start to fall even more, and then now you're left with a contract that you can't move. So, and let's face it, at the time, Kreider would have fetched a pretty good return if they would have traded him. So, I think that was a mistake signing him to that deal. I think that might hurt, might or might not hurt the Rangers cap wise. We'll see. A couple of years when the cap goes up, maybe it doesn't. But I do think that was a negative. And then the Trouba contract, like John said, the trade itself. I mean, I get he was coming off a really good year in Winnipeg. Neil Pionk didn't really turn into the guy that he is right now for Winnipeg yet. They felt they could afford to use him because the upgrade getting Trouba was so good, but again, the contract part of it, so $8 million. I think only the elite defenseman should get $8 million plus. And Trouba isn't elite defenseman, so and now that contract is going to hurt the Rangers. So in hindsight, those two contracts I thought were bad. But otherwise, like I said, I think he did set the Rangers up for success. They have a lot of pieces in play. They're a young team. So barring, any catastrophic injuries to anybody or whatnot, I think the Rangers are set to have some success in the next couple of years. But so I guess if you want to look at his tenure, like just as a whole, I wouldn't give him an A at the same time. I wouldn't give him a D, kind of, split in half, maybe just give him a solid B overall, if I'd say, as a grade. But it's a general manager. It's tough because you're always going to be criticized for your work. People are going to look and say, okay, if you did this or you didn't do that. I will say it's hard to be them most likely because regardless of what happens, you're going to have people that are going to say, oh, you just got fleeced or why'd you do this? So you're always it's a kind of like a thankless job in some ways in that regard when you talk the player movement. But overall, I would probably lean more towards saying that his success was his tenure was a success rather than a failure. But I can see why people would be happy maybe that he was gone or even try to say that, he didn't really do all that much for the team, but I would disagree with the latter. But hey, no one's perfect, and we could leave it at this. He's better than Mike Milbury by far.
That's not saying much.
I mean, geez, and we'll go with he's better than Garth Snow as well. I would have to say my one gripe, and I'm going to get this out right now. He never addressed the bottom six. The Rangers' bottom six it's not been the same since Dominic Moore left, and even I can't believe I forgot the guy's name for a second. John, the fourth line center, got drafted by Vegas in the expansion draft. He got his first NHL goal 2015 against the Blackhawks. Swedish defenseman. I can't believe I forgot his name.
Wait, what?
The Rangers center, he was...
Oh, Oscar Lindberg.
Oh, thank you. How did I forget Lindberg? Jesus.
You said Swedish defenseman for a second. I was
sorry. Sorry, I meant to say center. But yeah, Swedish. So Oscar Lindberg, even though you can't even find him on a milk carton anymore, he would have at least still been an upgrade over what they got. I kind of like Kevin Rooney, but I'm not sure on him yet. He turned in a decent season. But
Howden. Yeah,
well, Brett Howden, I don't even know what to say about Brett Howden anymore, except for just goodbye. We know, we've seen this movie. Yeah. Filk says it all right there. Now, I think a little bit of his tenure is going to be he accumulated as much assets as possible for the Rangers. And when he's accumulating all these assets, you're getting asset. You're not starting to think about roles yet. You're just thinking about assets. And again, there's going to be 2 more points about that coming up soon in the next segment. But if you're getting all these assets, then you got to remember you only have 6 defensemen you can use per game, 12 forwards you could use per game, 2 goaltenders. Hell, look at what we had with the Rangers. There's 1 net, and last year they had 3 goalies, and they completely fumbled ending Henrik Lundqvist's tenure with the Rangers. That'll be an editorial that'll do it at a later date, because fortunately news keeps coming out that I have to keep putting that off. It's sort of like if you can remember How I Met Your Mother, where they started seeing each other's faults and you could hear glass shattering behind them. It's like a shattered image. I kind of have that shattered image right now with Jeff Gorton. There were a lot of errors. There's a lot of good stuff. I'm not under the opinion of I wouldn't have fired him anymore. Now it's kind of like maybe, but still, I think there was a definite vision. I think he should have had 1 more season at least to at least fix it. I wouldn't have fired John Davidson, but I know why that happened too. So I'm wondering what Chris Drury is going to bring with this organization, and maybe that'll work. After all, Steve Yzerman went to Detroit. He didn't have a Stanley Cup ring with Tampa Bay, so he's the one that built that team. So we'll see how it goes. Lots of times that happens where you're not the one that finishes the rebuild. We were talking about it with Quinn, but we'll see about it soon. Final words on this, John?
I mentioned that, funny enough. I don't know if I said it in the last telecast, but I mentioned the whole Buck Showalter thing, the Buck Showalter effect. Like the next coach doesn't have to necessarily be the guy that takes them all the way, but develop the guys. That's why I mentioned Gallant, because I think if Gallant's not that guy, he could be the Buck Showalter. Maybe Jeff Gorton is the Buck Showalter. You have to break it down in 3 different things. You have to break it down by
Gene McMichael, I guess, for the Yankees would be another way of looking at that.
Oh well, Gene Michael was
Gene Michael. Craig McMichael. I mixed them up.
Gene Stick Michael was the architect of that entire dynasty. So, though, as far as I'm or any knowledgeable Yankee fan is concerned, but you have to break it down into different sections. Roster construction, and yeah, he got younger, but you're right. The bottom 6 just wasn't there. There was a lack of grit. There was a lack of toughness. A cap situation, the situation that he put them in cap-wise. The Henrik Lundqvist thing was not really... He had his hands tied there. They should have never given Henrik Lundqvist a no-movement clause as late as they did in his career. That was bad. there was no reason for it. But that also wasn't Jeff Gorton's contract. That was Glenn Sather's contract.
Correct.
So you can't bash Gorton for that. Prospect accumulation and organizational depth, Gorton was great at that. I mean, you could talk about the misses, but overall, he really gave them a lot of good prospects and ones that still have a lot of value that could possibly be in a Jack Eichel trade this summer. So that, and then I would say just the overall results as the final part of that. And I mean, the fact that they got into a play-in spot last year and still got Alexis Lafreniere out of it, that's pretty good. Overall, I could see why they fired him, though. There's definitely a rift, and there definitely was a rift and a disconnect between the two parts of the upper office up there. Just like how Brian Cashman used to goes at it with the so-called Tampa faction of Billy Connors and them when George Steinbrenner was still alive and really had his finger on the Yankees. So I'm going to say this, though. I've got a lot of faith in Chris Drury. Chris Drury is an analytics guy. He knows what it takes. He's been there in the organization right behind Sather and Gorton for how long? I think he has enough of an old school perspective combined with a new school perspective that he should be able to take this team to the next level. So I have a lot of faith in Chris Drury. If we had a lesser experienced GM, or if they decided to do something stupid like bring in Mark Messier and have him in a position like that, then I would be really scared at that point. But Chris Drury, Pittsburgh wanted him for a reason when Jim Rutherford stepped down. Just remember that.
Anthony, last word?
So I'll make this comparison. Sometimes you have a guy that can lay the ground pieces and the foundation, and then you just need another person to take those pieces and lead you to the promised land. So, for instance, Gar Snow drafted Anders Lee, Brock Nelson stole Beauvillier and Barzell from Edmonton in the draft, drafted Pollock, Cizikas. He brought Matt Martin, the heart and soul of the Islanders, back to the team. So Lou Lamoriello inherited a lot of the pieces that the Islanders already have. But then he came in, sprinkled in Pageau, solidified them up the middle. Then he gets another goal scorer in Kyle Palmieri, and just kind of puts his. And then most importantly, he finally gets Ilya Sorokin over. I don't know if John remembers it or if it was ever 100% confirmed, but for a while it was reported that Sorokin said he didn't want to play for a Gar Snow run Islander team. For the longest time, I was like, the Islanders got to get him over here. Lou finally got him over here. So, he laid the ground pieces. Lou took it to the next level. Same with the Rangers. Gorton did a lot of good for the Rangers. He set them up in a good spot. Now maybe it's Drury's opportunity to put his stamp on the team and bring the Rangers to the promised land. So that's the best I could say about it. I think he did his job. He had pros, he had cons, but he did what he could. Now it's time for somebody else to take over and finish the job.
And I'll just finish up my word on this by saying, I'll finish your metaphor. You get guys that they come in, they lay the foundation, the people frame up the house. I wish there was an example of someone having work done on their house right now that could help me and be inspired to think about this. But you end up having different people to do different things as it goes down the line. Sometimes it goes through a different architect, so it just happens. But we want to know what you think. How did the Jeff Gorton tenure end? Did you like it? Would you have given him another year? Can you look at his misses and go, oh, geez? Because, by the way, you know what? Before we get away from this, let me throw one thing out at everybody. Because there's another miss potentially on the horizon for the Rangers. Well, I mean, I like Vitaly Kravtsov. I like the way he looks. And he's one of the reasons why I say the Rangers have a roster crunch coming. But Oliver Wahlstrom and Noah Dobson are in the playoffs right now. And you know who didn't draft them? Jeff Gorton. He could have drafted either one of them, which, by the way, that's one thing the Rangers would need is another defenseman to be up there. So if you like what we're saying, leave us a like. Don't forget to share it. We'll have shorter segments on this throughout the week. Like, share, and subscribe. And you guys have been doing that. We love the support we're getting. Moving on to our Bar Talk segment.
I'm going to take a shot on this one.
I'm going to say beer.
I'm buying everybody around on this. Oh my God.
Well, welcome back to our Bar Talk segment. This is one of my favorite segments every single week. It's where we gauge NHL topics by our choice of drink, and sometimes we need a lot of them. So just like this week, and this feels so weird for me, we're going to lead with the Islanders yet again. Anthony, Ilya Sorokin should start every game for the Islanders in the playoffs.
You know, I was ready to say, like, buy everyone around. I mean, for every game, made me hesitate a little bit. But listen, I'll say this: Ilya Sorokin, every Islander fan knows, and even fans. I love John thinking about what he's going to say right now. Every Islander fan knows that, you know, he was viewed as our savior. He's been hyped, you know, and he's come over, and for everything that he hasn't been afforded because of this crazy year, he still excelled, and he still showed his skill with his athleticism. And he shut the Penguins down. This is in the regular season. This is the playoffs. This is all about getting in your heads. This is momentum. This is getting in a groove and feeling good. You know, the kid played his first playoff game. He was cool, calm, collected, and you reward him by sitting him on the bench because your number one is healthy, hasn't played in a game in, you know, almost 2 weeks. Listen, Varlamov played great after that first period. He settled in, but I think Sorokin had all the momentum. You know, I think he has a lot to prove too. Hey, listen, you know, he knows he was the backup this year. He probably wants to say, "Hey, I'm ready to be the number one next year," and maybe by having a good playoffs, he gets a larger contract too from the Islanders this summer. If he would have a lot of success, I think he's motivated. And you know, experience wise at the NHL level, he doesn't have it at Varlamov yet. But if you're talking pure skill and talent, he's got more than Varlamov. He needs to work on his, you know, he's still learning his angles and his positioning. But just on raw athletic ability, he's better than Varlamov, and I think, yeah. So you know what? Screw it. I'm gonna say, I'll say Round. I think he should be. I think he should be the starter. Like we were texting yesterday. At least give him the opportunity. If he falters, yeah, then go back to Varlamov. But until then, ride him. See what he does. Maybe it's like I said, Cam Ward, 2006. The guy gets hot, and he has his coming out party. But yeah, I think he should. But I'll be shocked if he's in goal. I think Trotz is going to go back to Varlamov tomorrow for Game 3.
I'm going to say beer. And I know that we've had this question previously before the playoffs, and the question was, should Ilya Sorokin start Game 1? And
the irony is that he did.
The irony is that he ended up doing so due to an injury, and he played well. I said that you got to go with the guy that got you to the dance in Varlamov, which is funny because that's what Barry Trotz basically said. So he took the words right out of my mouth and used them against me. Go figure. But
that would be a horrible Meatloaf song.
Yeah, all right, stop. Just stop with the Meatloaf references, please. You're killing me, Smalls. I mean, all jokes aside, it's funny that I say those exact words and he ends up turning them against me, and it ends up actually, costing them in a way. I mean, you don't want to pin the entire loss on Varlamov because the Islanders really didn't start that game well either, but I'm not going to say they started it bad, but Varlamov has to make those 2 saves. He absolutely has to. And right now, it's got to be Sorokin's net. You got to go back to Sorokin in Game 3 because he looked really good. And you can't afford to go down 2-1 against Pittsburgh. You do not want to lose Game 3 because I think whoever wins Game 3 is probably going to end up winning this series. If they don't, then at least they have a much better chance of winning it, obviously. But you got to go with Sorokin right now. I'm going to say beer just because it's so early that if the Islanders end up getting past this series and winning it, I mean, the goaltending controversy will still probably linger on a little bit, and it'll give a little more time for Trotz to analyze the situation. But he's got to make a move sooner than later, and it's got to be Sorokin in Game 3, if you ask me. So I'm going to say beer.
I'm glad Anthony changed it by everybody around, so now I can actually lower mine to just beer. Because if you didn't, I was going to be buying. We've talked about this again privately, and I've mentioned it in the first segment. Ilya Sorokin stole Game 1, and where I got some of my friends that are talking, "Oh, Sorokin," like, yeah, whatever. I still think Igor is better anyway. So that's both bias and also, I mean, Ilya Sorokin kept them in that game in Game 1, and I really look at him in the first 2 periods of that game and go, he was the difference. I'm not going to kill him too bad, but he's off at his angle on the captain and goal. So, and that's one of those stops you have to make right there. You can't afford to let it go to overtime. Luckily, the Islanders won it anyway, so you didn't have to worry about that in the end. So, and another reason why it's a beer, because, you know, he could step in at any moment. Barry Trotz navigated this situation once before, and I've said this on previous broadcasts with Philip Grubauer and Braden Holtby. And even though it was not the same situation, he got the best out of Braden Holtby, and they ended up winning a Stanley Cup with that. I mean, imagine that. You started 2 games with Philip Grubauer and won a Stanley Cup after going down 2-0 and losing your first 2 games at home, which I was all like, hey, I wonder who was the last team that did that. Oh, yeah, it happened 3 years ago. So wake up. So moving on to the next guy. John, we'll start you with this. JG Pageau is most critical player to the Islanders' success.
I would say he's probably top 3. I've got to put him behind the other 2 centers in front of him. And funny enough, Brock Nelson is probably the most critical player, I think. He's got to be the Brock Nelson that he was last year in the playoffs. If they want to go deep, Brock Nelson's got to replicate that type of performance. So I'm going to say beer because he's up there, but he's not the most important one for me. But the way he's playing right now, I mean, he's going to be the driving force. And if he's going to be the driving force and he can get them over the hump, and their other guys like Barzal and Eberle can, you know, start producing, and Kyle Palmieri doesn't go milk carton status again, I mean, that's a real formidable offense right there. If all those other guys, he stays hot. So also, where's Travis Zajac?
Healthy scratch.
I mean, that's what I'm getting at. Like, how you brought that guy over and he's not even playing. So they've got some depth. They've got options. But JG Pageau is absolutely doing everything that they need him to do. He's that pain in the ass 4-goal against the Rangers type player right now. Yeah, I know. I want to say the same words right now. But
I don't have to worry about being PJ.
Yeah, we got to keep it PJ. So yeah, he's been real good. He's been worth every single penny that they gave him. So beer, but not the most important to me, but right there.
I'm going to go beer too, but I will say he was, for my money, he was the best Islander on the ice in Game 1. You know, he was all over. He scored a goal. He played against Crosby's line. He created the game-winning goal, Palmieri. Face-offs, PK. So you can make the case that he is, but I just think that you know, Barzal get going was probably more critical. But listen, Pager's line, him, Wallstrom, Palmieri, they're going right now, and it's you know, Palmieri's playing good on his own too, but Pageau drives the line in the sense of, you know, that he's the most physical guy in that line. He takes the draws, and he just plays really hard. He plays a hard-nosed style of game, but I'm just not going around just because I think Barzal's success overall to the team is probably more critical, because once he gets going, then Pittsburgh has to pay more attention to him. And, it gives guys like Nelson and Pageau's line a little more freedom because they're facing lesser competition. So, but yeah, I agree with John. Pageau's probably top three for me. I would say Barzal, Pageau, and then probably like Adam Pelech, based upon the fact that he's stapled to Crosby's back. But yeah, he's been great. He's been awesome for the Islanders, and if he keeps playing the way he does, they're going to have a real good chance of winning the series.
And just because I might tell a player to go to hell, rotten hell, I hate you, you ruin moments of my life, doesn't mean he's not a good player. Yeah, I hate John Gabriel Pageau with a passion, but my God, if he was wearing a blue shirt, I would take him on my team in a heartbeat. And then I'd probably have to punch him in the face once if I met him in person. So it's to give my answer on this, I'm gonna have to go beer too, because both you guys laid it out perfectly. Barzal is critical, Pelech is critical, and Brock Nelson is critical. What's great about the Pageau acquisition for the Islanders is now he's either the matchup center, which frees up Barzal, or you got two matchup centers with him and Cizikas, and even a third with Nelson.
Nelson, yeah.
Like Nelson's game took off because Tavares left. I mean, as much as you could say, John Tavares, if he was a New York Islander, Islander fans, he who will not be named, it really would have helped the Islanders immensely. But you wouldn't have John Gabriel Pageau, although he might have had him on a wing. I mean, let's be honest, they probably still would have gotten him.
Oh, no, they probably Cap-wise.
Yeah.
They
wouldn't have been able to afford him, but they would have been able to go get him, though. So, again, I'm going to have to go beer. It's close to buying everybody around. I'll say that. Jeff Gorton's tenure was more about luck than brilliance. And you know what? I'm going to start with this one. Beer. It's unfortunate that it's beer. I would love to say shot. I'd love to say that Jeff Gorton did a great job. But his last two draft picks, first-round draft picks, you didn't have to even think. You knew they were going right in as soon as it happened. There was no doubt. I forget who was – Kirby Dach. Kirby Dach was basically the only decision for the Rangers, but you're still going to go Capo Caco. Let's say Lafreniere wasn't the clear-cut number one overall pick. They didn't get any luck in the 2018 draft when Kravtsov was drafted, and I went over that in the last segment. There were decisions that had to be made, and he stepped into Alexander Georgiev too. So there were players that made strides under him, but I'm not going to say that it was total luck, because the Rangers would have ended up with guys like Marco Rossi and maybe Bowen Byram or Jamie Drysdale, somebody lower that they would have gotten. So I mean, that wouldn't have been all that bad anyway. Although, by the way, is the pick in Anaheim? I'm not sure. They need to have every season ticket holder say that last year. So, John, I'll go to you.
I don't want to discredit him. I really don't, because there are some good things that he did. I mean, we talked about them before. The Nash trade was a stroke of brilliance. It really was. But if you look up and down at everything and you look at the entire body of work, I'm going to have to say buy around. It just, to me, it like if I'm being as impartial as I can be, I gotta buy everybody around on this one, because more moves than not were kind of things that just fell into his lap. Panarin fell into his lap. Fox fell into his lap. Trouba wanted to be here. The Mika Zibanejad trade was an absolute heist. But
yeah,
Pierre Dorian, and I'm going to say this as nicely as I can, was a dumbass for that trade. Was an absolute dumbass for that trade.
Even though Brassard ended up being a key contributor to beat the Rangers the next year.
But
In the long run, Mika Zibanejad's a great.
you just listen. I get that Mika Zibanejad probably never would have figured it out in Ottawa. JT Miller himself said he never would have figured it out in New York, and he never would have figured it out in Tampa. He needed to get traded that third time. Sometimes guys need that change of scenery to figure things out on how to get to that next level. And that's what Mika Zibanejad did in New York. Like, they told him, you have to be better in the offseason. You have to work on your diet and your offseason conditioning to get better. And he did. And that's part of why he got to that next level. But I overall, the body of work is more luck than it is. And listen, I liked Gorton. I liked what he did. But a lot of the key moves are luck-based. Like you said before, Kakko and Lafreniere were absolute obvious picks. Where was the discussion about what other player was being taken? They weren't going to take Kirby Dach, even though I think Kirby Dach might end up being a better player than Kaapo Kakko, at least offensively. But they were never going to take Kirby Dach. Never.
And that the Rangers needed a center.
Yeah, and they needed a center. And that's another thing. Braden Schneider over Hendrix Lapierre. Like, listen, I like what we're seeing so far from Braden Schneider. He's added an element to his game offensively without sacrificing anything defensively. And he's becoming a real good prospect. I mean, he might be moved, but that's another story. But you had to take Hendrix Lapierre there. You really did, because the center, they needed a center there. And that was the time where you take a risk with a second pick in the first round of a draft. When you have multiple picks, you can take that risk. That's why they took the risk on Kravtsov, because they had 3 picks in that first. I don't get why they took the risk on Lias Anderson, but again, panic. We're not going to go over that again because that's a dead horse beaten right there. But again, more luck than I see than brilliance. So I'm gonna have to buy around.
Anthony,
I was gonna go beer, but then hearing John say he was gonna go around, me change it around, and I say that because all right, he won the lottery twice, moved up to second to get Kakko, and then he won the lottery to select Lafreniere. Let's face it, that's luck when you win the lottery right there. So that's 2 times, 2 core players that he just fell into right there to have the opportunity to select. And then Panarin, everyone and their mother knew he wanted to play for New York, so kind of fell to the Rangers there. Adam Fox wanted to play for the Rangers, so that was easy for him to do. So if you look at a lot of the core pieces on this team, Filk could have been the general manager and made those moves. I mean, so
pay me. I'll take substantially less than what Drury's making. Yeah. Just give me like $100,000 a year and we're good.
Yeah. So, I mean, that alone, look at Panarin, Fox, Lafreniere, Kakko. That's 4 core long-term future players, all because all you had to do was like press the Staples easy button and it was going to happen. So, yeah, so it's round for me.
You know what? One thing I forgot to mention in the last segment, and I forgot to mention right here. We can argue all we want. The mishandling of Tony DeAngelo is a bad thing completely, because no matter what, DeAngelo was an asset, and they wrote him off. It's just, no, that's it. Now, even if they picked up his salary, like I said before, pick up his salary and the amount that they're paying in penalty, they got in cap penalties and buyouts. It's like, just trade him, find somebody else. Maybe they could have gotten Sam Bennett, who's playing really well, and we're going to get to him in a second. And you know what? I hate to throw this out there again, guys, but the Rangers have a roster crunch coming. And Anthony, we're going to go with you first. We'll conclude with me, because I keep doing the Homer Simpson, the end is near, every single time that happens. But Anthony, go ahead.
So if you're talking roster crunches, as in the sense of like cap space, I would say, yeah, definitely. If you're saying roster crunch because you have a lot of young players coming up competing for spots, that too, but more so for me, it has more to do with the cap, just because you have so many young players like Shesterkin, Fox, Buchnevich, if they keep choosing long term. Kako that they're going to have to sign. Yeah, you have a lot of dead cap space coming off, which will help. But when you're talking, elite players or soon to be elite players on a consistent basis in Fox and Shesterkin, they're going to take up a lot of money. And then Zibanejad too, who, he's going to probably want $7 million plus. That's going to be hard for the Rangers. So I'll go beer, but I think that otherwise they can manage making space for guys like Lundqvist coming up the pipeline. I think that's kind of relatively easy to do, to make space for young players. You trade some guys for picks, or you waive a couple of people and make room for the younger guys. But for me, it's more so the cap wise for me. But and if it weren't for Kreider and Trouba, I would say that they would be in really good shape. But it's going to be difficult for Drury to manage, but I think he's a smart guy. He'll do it. I mean, you've seen the Penguins somehow get around it for years. Same with the Blackhawks. So good teams and good general managers find ways around it. But yeah, I mean, there's no mincing words about it. They do have some tinkering to do with the cap. So I'll go beer.
It's manageable. So I'm going to say beer, but I want to lean towards shot here. There's also going to be trades. And I have a feeling that you're going to see Jack Eichel. I've called it. I'm still sticking with it. I think you're going to see Jack Eichel. And I think Ryan Strome and or Pavel Buchnevich could be in that deal. So you're going to move salary out in that deal to make that deal happen. Buffalo is going to get an NHL level talent, or top, at least I would say a top 6 level talent in return in that deal. Then, I mean, I know people are talking about Adam Fox. I've seen some people online thinking that he's getting somewhere between 8 to 10 million. Listen, he's played 2 seasons in the NHL, and this is a shortened season. And yes, he's a Norris finalist, but I'm going to say between 6 and 7 million on an 8-year deal. I wouldn't even be surprised if it's anywhere between 41, I would say 48 to about 51 million over 8 years for Adam Fox. So I could see 6.5, maybe 7 at the most if they decide that they want to get him locked up. But I don't even think he'll get a Thomas Chabot type deal where it was the 8 years, 56 million, where he got, or the 8 years, 64 million that Chabot got, I believe it was. So, I mean, Igor Shesterkin's probably going to get about 5, I would say, after this season. So he'll be locked up. But I mean, guys like Lafreniere, Kakko, Kravtsov haven't really produced to the point where they're going to put the Rangers in a bind this soon. So it's going to be a couple more years, and then by the time that those guys are ready, Trouba and Kreider, their no movement clauses are going to be gone, and they'll probably be gone themselves at that point. Will the Rangers have to give up something to get rid of them? Possibly at that point, but I really don't think this is much of a bind, cap-wise or roster crunch-wise. The only thing that would really concern me is the fact that someone like Kreider, who I wanted to say this before, he's not a player that's really overly skilled or smart. And a lot of his game comes from his physical features, like his speed, his physical strength, and so on. That's a large portion of his game. And that is not going to age well. So you need to be a smarter player that can score in other types of ways once those tools start going. He doesn't have great hands either. He has a really good shot, but he does not have great hands. So it might be harder to move someone like him, but thankfully it's only 6.5 and not worse. But no, I'm gonna say shot here. They not really a crunch. It'll be figured out.
I'm still gonna buy everybody around on this, and it's not so much of the salary cap because I'm not as worried about the salary cap. They got money coming off the books. My worry is playing time for all these guys. If you re-sign Pavel Buchnevich, that's already Kreider on the top power play unit. Where are you going to put Buchnevich? Let's say Brian Strome goes right back there. Zibanejad goes on the top power play unit. Panarin's on the top power play unit. And Adam Fox is on top power play unit. Where's Nils Lundqvist playing? Where's Alexei Lafreniere playing? Where's Kaapo Kakko playing? Where's Vitaly Kravtsov playing? It's just there are roles that are in there. And then let's go to the second unit. Because then, look at this year. You had to have Colin Blackwell over either Kakko or Lafreniere.
Yeah.
Filipino's right there. And it's just there's a lot that there's so many players that are going to be eligible to be playing spots. Let's just go with their defensive prospects. You got Tomo Reunanen, you have Matthew Robertson, Nils Lundqvist. Those are three guys that are in Braden Schneider. Four. There's four guys that are NHL that can play in the NHL next year. One of them that already did, and how many spots are open right now? Because Fox is taken, Troop is taken, Lindgren's taken. Yeah. So it's right there. There's a couple of spots that are right there. You still got forward prospects that are coming up. Yes, trades are going to happen, but right now you have to start trying to figure out exactly where that crunch is coming from. So is it manageable? Yes, it's manageable. But it's going to make you make decisions. And I'm not just sticking to this because I made this in my bold predictions video at the beginning of the year before I was lucky enough to have John join me. So it's been a while. And before I had Anthony to give me the disapproving look that he's giving me right now. All right, moving on, boys. This has been the best opening days in NHL playoff history. Anthony, we'll start with you.
That's tough. Opening days. I'll go beer. As exciting as the Florida Lightning, so the Panthers Lightning series has been so far. Some series haven't even got going yet. The Oilers and the Jets get going tonight. The Maple Leafs and the Canadiens haven't got going yet. So there's a couple series that still haven't even started yet. So I think that kind of goes into my contributing factor here. But, you do have some good series. The Islanders Penguins game 1 was good. The Lightning and the Panthers was off the charts. Even though it was a 1-0 game, games like that could be exciting with the Wild and the Golden Knights. So there's been some good hockey, but then there's also been some hockey that hasn't even started yet. And the Panthers started, the Leafs and the Canadiens. That's going to be a doozy. So. I'll go beer, but it's definitely been exciting hockey, and I'm excited for what's to come. We just got going, so there's a lot more left.
I've got to say beer as well. I don't know if you could really say that this is the most exciting opening round of all time. That's really, really hard to say. I remember years ago when Detroit got upset by San Jose in '94. That was ridiculous. San Jose upsetting St. Louis in 2000 with a Hart-end Norris winner and Chris Pronger and a President's Trophy and a 42-win Roman Turek. How weird does that sound, by the way? But you just, I don't know if I could say it, beer, but like Anthony said, it's been very, very exciting, and I can't wait for Oilers and Jets. And the one that I really can't wait for, because I think it has the potential to be a bloodbath and be an absolute banger of a series, is Toronto and Montreal. Mm-hmm. I really think Montreal is going to pull it out in 7, and I think the mutiny in Toronto is going to be. Could you imagine the offseason if they lose to Montreal? Forget about it. But now, beer.
You know something? I was going to go beer with the rest of you guys, but your arguments actually convinced me to say buy everybody around. I mean, it's amazing because, like I said before, and I'll put up the graphic again, 4 of the first 5 games went to overtime, and the 5th game in that sequence was actually the 4th game. That was Florida Tampa Bay. That was settled with Braden Point scoring with like 1:20 remaining. So, and that game was incredible to watch. And we're going to have more on that in the next segment real quick. But there's that. And a lot of these overtime games, they weren't just like, oh, we scored 1 goal. We're going to play defensively and that's it. No, you had games like Islanders Penguins that I was starting to write in the rundown where I'm saying Ilya Sorokin stole game 1, and before I could finish the sentence, Kasperi Kapanen tied it. So there's right there. Monday night, I'm working. I look over to a friend of mine, and I just went, "Oh, I guess the Capitals are going up 2-0 in the series." And then, of course, Taylor Hall ties it with like 3 minutes remaining. You know, Bryce Harper of hockey, and it's and again, more on Taylor Hall in a minute. But it's just, and then Bruins win with like 30 seconds into overtime. This has been an incredible run so far. I mean, last night kind of dialed it back a little bit, but I mean, and the reason why you guys convinced me to now buy everybody around is because the Canadians are getting into this now. We're going to have Montreal and Toronto. I don't even know the last time they played. I think the last time, yeah, what?
79, I believe it was.
79. Jeez. The Rangers lost to the Canadians in the 79 Stanley Cup Finals. Yeah. So, I mean, that's how long ago that was. There was somebody that was one at that time. So it's just, this is going to be an incredible run. I actually can't wait. I can't wait for these playoff series. I also can't wait to stop kicking my tripod.
Mark, will you calm down over there?
Yeah, you know what? I was so excited. And
we're in a frenzy right now, bud.
It's all the iced coffee I was drinking before. I was saving up my energy, waiting to get on the air. Guys,
I get like 5 overtime banger like I did last year in the first game against Tampa and Columbus, or Pittsburgh and Philadelphia in 2001, Anaheim and Dallas 2003. Can I get my ridiculously long game where I'm sitting there at my TV waiting to see who the hell wins this on what type of bounce or what broken play?
Right, and you know what?
What that?
And you know what? That's what makes those games great. And talking about the Easter epic, where Mike Gartner was saying, I got the puck in the slot in the third overtime, or bottom of the circle, and I had nothing left. I couldn't put anything on it. Now, athletes these days, they're better conditioned to play a 5 overtime game, Braden Point.
That's absolutely true.
Yeah, it's just it's incredible. Which, back to Florida. The Battle of Florida is still the best series of the first round. Anthony, we haven't heard from you in the last couple minutes because we've been chewing up scenery.
I'm gonna say round there only because Nashville and Carolina, they only played one game, and Carolina won 5-2. That wasn't that exciting of a series so far. Islanders and Penguins have been good, but I still give the nod to the Battle of Florida over them. And then, Minnesota, Vegas, Minnesota took game 1, which was surprising. Vegas came back and won, but still not a whole lot going on there. Capitals, Bruins looks like it started to get really intense in game 2, a lot of the physical stuff. So I think that's going to be a really good game 3 tonight to keep a watch out for on that one. So if you go, and then obviously the ones that haven't got started yet in Canada. So when you go through the progression like that, I think it makes it a little easier to say so far the Panthers Lightning series has been the best. Although, last night's game wasn't as crazy, obviously, as game 1, but just because of that game 1 alone, I'll still go with them. And the unfortunate part about it is Tampa's up 2-0 now. And I think they have the stranglehold in that series because remember, they took those 2 games away. Now they're going back home. So that's going to be really hard for the Panthers. I don't think they're going to get swept. I forget if I said Tampa in 5 or 6, but I think Tampa Bay is going to win this series handily now, but it has been really good.
Filk.
This is absolutely a round. I'd buy a round of shots for everybody for this. I mean, we're going top shelf liquor here, baby. But this is absolutely rounds all around. This has been some exciting hockey. This is what playoff hockey is supposed to be like. Bad blood. They had that game right before the playoffs that set everything up. Set everything up for that. So who thought that the hockey world the epicenter of the hockey world would be in Florida right now? I mean, you have the defending champs and then an upstart Panthers team, which has been brought back from the dead by a all-time great head coach and the two most underrated superstars in the entire league in Alex Barkov and Jonathan Huberdeau. So, these games are like must watch. They're not like I'm going to tell you right now, I will break plans with people to watch those games. Because if I'm not near a TV to watch those games, I'm going to be very pissed. So, yeah, buying everybody around.
Let's make this a clean sweep. I'm buying everybody around too. This series already has it all, starting just from game one. Let me just recap a little bit what happened to game one in case if people didn't see what happened. Sam Bennett scored a goal, and it was disallowed because they said Patrick Hornquist pushed Andrei Vasilevsky. He didn't. Already the referees got that one wrong. Then Blake Coleman comes back the other way, scores a shorthanded goal. The Panthers come back, score a power play goal to tie the game right there. And then I think they took the lead on Carter Verhaeghe, and a great play where he just came out of nowhere on a give and go, I think, with Barkov. And again, Tampa getting I'm running out of names to say. I can't believe this is what happens when you get too excited. You lose your track. The Tampa winger, Kucherov. These are like preseason games. An all-time player and MVP, and I just forgot his name for a second. Kucherov, these are like preseason games, and he scores 2 goals in the most Kucherov way. You're like, oh yeah, that's right. This guy is awesome. And then you got 2 coaches that are going at it pretty well. I don't know if you want to write off Florida just yet, because they're the stuff for them in this series is still going strong. It's just going to be like that. And I mean, Joel Quenneville has been here before, been there, done that. He's brought teams back from 2-0. This series ain't far from over, and there's even goaltending controversy. Who do you start? Do you start Bobrovsky? Do you start Drager? Do you start Spencer Knight? There was Sam Bennett laying the hit on Blake Coleman where he got suspended, where he actually boarded him and did something dangerous, and player safety did something. How about that, George Barros? I mean, you could always, it's not like he ragdolled the guy and threw him on the ice or punched him one in the face repeatedly when they were down. So, I mean, this series has it all already, and it's only 2 games in. And even last night, the 2-1 win for Tampa, still a fantastic game. Like again, I'm a buzz about it.
Yeah, and then you forgot the Ryan McDonagh hit, which was almost the same exact hit as Sam. And then Ryan McDonagh doesn't get suspended for it. So,
yeah.
I mean, these guys just don't know what the hell they're doing.
They really don't know their asses from their elbows.
Sorry.
Well, guys, I got to talk about my all-time favorite player. Taylor Hall will guide the Bruins past the Capitals. Anthony, we're going to start with you again.
Yeah, that project is done now. They just left, so.
Oh, nice. Okay, good.
Hey.
Yeah, I would. I mean, I know he scored the game-tying goal the other night, and that was big for Boston. Otherwise, they're looking at a 2-0 hole. But I'm gonna go beer only because I think if Boston's gonna beat Washington, it's because Tuukka Rask shuts the door on the Capitals, and they play their typical Bruins hockey. Stingy defense and the the perfection line with Marchand, Bergeron, and Pastrnak leads them to victory on most nights. So, I mean, Hall's definitely a good contributing factor. He made his mark with the game-tying goal. Game 1, I thought he was just kind of average. But I think Boston has other pieces that will be more vital to their success, that I just said, in Rask and then their top line. So that's why I'm going beer, but don't get me wrong, Taylor Hall will help. I just don't know if he's going to be the deciding factor in the series.
Filk.
Yeah, I mean, I'm with Anthony there, but I'm just gonna say shot, because the perfection line is the most important thing that they have going for them. I mean, that line is going to drive them. And then you got to look at Rask and how he plays. And then Boston's defense is going to be challenged. So if Boston's defense, rises up to the occasion, they'll be able to put a clamp on Washington, and then they can upset Washington. I would say Taylor Hall's probably the fourth most important factor in terms of keys to success for Boston. So I'm saying shot.
I've often referred to him as hockey's Bryce Harper, and I will still stick with that. But you know what? I'm gonna say shot because of everything you guys just outlined. Also, the perfection line number 1, Tuukka Rask number 2, Charlie McAvoy probably number 3, then maybe Taylor Hall number 4. And you know what? That's good for Taylor Hall because less pressure on him. But he came up huge for the Capitals the other night, and they would have been down 0-2, but they don't have to worry about that now. And he's almost a point a game player, 14 points in 16 games with the Capitals. With the Bruins. Oops. And he's already got a key goal in this series. So let's see how that all shakes out. Everybody could take a collective sigh of relief in Nevada right now, but we're still going to ask this question. Vegas won't get past Minnesota. Filk, let's get you started with this.
I mean, I just want to know what you're smoking and where you get it from, because that's some good shit, dude. That's some good shit. This is definitely a shot. I mean, Vegas is going to come back and win this series. I would be shocked if Minnesota wins another game in this series. Where's Kaprizov? Does he have a point in this series yet? And I mean, that's their offense right there. That's their line. And you know what? They got that one goal in overtime in the first game, which was a real fluky bounce by Eriksson Ek. Went in off of looks like Alex Martinez's skate. That's another guy we can give a gigantic FU anytime his name is mentioned too. But they don't have the offense. They don't have the depth. And Vegas is just too much. They're too balanced of a team. They're too deep. Vegas is going to probably, if you ask me, Vegas is going to win the next 3 games, and this is going to be a 5-game series. I never got to give the prediction on this series because when I gave the prediction, the matchups were different the last time. So yeah. I had Vegas sweeping them, but it's going to end in 5. If you ask me, I'd be shocked if it gets to 6.
That was only one of 2 sweeps predicted by all of the pundits right here. I had the other one, Carolina, and 4 over Nashville. Anthony.
I'm going to go shot as well. But what I will say, though, if you're a Wild fan and you're trying to remain hopeful, the fact is, you took one game in Vegas and now you're going back home to Minnesota, where Minnesota, has owned Vegas this past regular season. With that said, again, Vegas is still winning the series, but if you're a Wild fan, you're trying to be positive about it. You're technically in a good spot right now, being that you split in Vegas. But Vegas is just too deep of a team. They got the great goaltending between Fleury and Leonard. They got the offense. They're the least scoring. They've allowed the least amount of goals in the National Hockey League this season. Leonard and Fleury win the Jennings Trophy. That's thanks to them and their defense as a whole. For my money, I picked them to win the Stanley Cup in my playoff pool. I think they're just a really good team, and they're going to be too much for Minnesota. So definitely shot. But again, for any Wild fan happen to see this, have some faith. You did the job, and you split in Vegas, and now you're coming home.
Well, I'm going to say shot too. I know that there's a sect of Ranger fans that believe Cam Talbot is the greatest goalie that ever put on pads. There are guys I know that say they should have traded Henrik Lundqvist after 2015, despite the fact that he had a no movement clause in 7 more years on his contract. Getting back to the actual things, I got to hand it to Cam Talbot. He's played very well. I don't see it. They're going to have to play tight defensively. And even though we got those numbers down below, 2 regulation wins, one on the 13th of March, and the other one was game 2, which was last night. So it's going to be difficult. And the only way that I think Vegas doesn't get past them is if Pete DeBoer screws it up. Let's say Marc-Andre Fleury reverts back to his closing Pittsburgh form and just has one bad game. And then DeBoer goes, all right, there's my excuse. I get to go to Robin Leonard. And even though I think Leonard is more than capable of doing the job too, Marc-Andre Fleury is playing phenomenal. And he's been heart and soul of Vegas since he got there. So no, absolutely not. Don't mess with Vegas. Alex Tuck stepping up, possibly the best third line player in the NHL. And you know what? No. Vegas is getting by them, so don't worry about that. This one's a little bit more cerebral to talk about because unfortunately it's about the world we live in right now. But Canada's virus protocols will delay Canadian Cup teams' dreams. So I'll start us off just to get us started on this because, again, the real question, nobody really has an answer for this. I've listened around, looked for articles, and I think there's a hope that they're going to be able to not have a 2-week quarantine for crossing the border in a few weeks. But let's say, for instance, let's say the Edmonton Oilers make the Final Four. That'll be in a month in June, and they have to decide what they're going to do. They're not going to quarantine for 2 weeks to play games 3 and 4. They'll probably have to relocate to an American city. Let's say that it's I don't even know where. Let's say it's San Jose. What is that the closest right now active city? Is Seattle's stadium done?
No, their stadium's not done.
Okay.
My guess is they would try to put it in a market that doesn't have an NHL team, maybe North Dakota or New Hampshire or
Portland,
Wisconsin.
I mean, Ralph Engelstad Arena in North Dakota, where the Sioux play, probably one of the nicest arenas in all of college hockey. So you could possibly see it there.
But that's where a good question is, because then you got fans that are going to be going down there. They're still doing the current setup. We're not going to find out about this for about a month. And I think there's a substantial effect, say, for instance, and I'm pointing to Edmonton specifically, because Winnipeg could probably go to like Minnesota or even North Dakota, as we just said. Toronto goes to Buffalo. Maybe even Montreal goes to Buffalo. You still could get your fans to come to the games. But is that going to be enough? Sleeping in your own bed also has a different effect. There's so many things that go into that. And I'd hate to see it come down to this, but also I understand there's bigger things in hockey. So, Phil, go to you.
I'm gonna say beer, but I really don't think it's gonna throw everything off, because I look at what happened with the trade deadline. I mean, we all thought that there was going to be a big problem with the trade deadline. They ended up lowering it. The numbers are going down, really. I mean, Montreal was just allowed, 2,500 fans, I think it was.
Yep.
Yeah, so, starting May 28th.
May 28th. Yeah, I think you're going to be looking at. I don't think you're going to be looking at a real problem or a neutral site. I just think that Canada itself, I know, like I said, there are bigger things, but I mean, the country runs as a business in itself too. I mean, just like America does. And I'd imagine that they want being played in the finals if that team gets to the finals. I mean, obviously the North Division, the first first 2 rounds are going to be within Canada, so there's not a problem. But that third round to get out, to get to Stanley Cup Finals is going to be a big deal. So I'd imagine that something's going to be agreed to by then, and I don't think it's going to affect everything. I think we'll get a little closer to normalcy. But again, that could be me just being hopeful. But I look at what happened with the trade deadline, and I think they're going to get to something.
Anthony,
I'm going to go beer. I think I know this is just fans, not necessarily teams crossing borders, but the fact that the province of Quebec is going to allow Canadians to have fans beginning the 28th, if they're still playing by then, I think that's a good sign. Province and Ontario has been a little lagging with because there's still some pretty heavy restrictions, which I guess Canada's a little behind than us with everything, vaccine rollouts and whatnot. But I mean, enough is enough. Let people live and let people get back to some sort of normalcy. Mental health. Robin Leonard is a big day. These things, and and at some point you have to, like I said, you have to start to get back to normalcy here and let people do the things they love doing. And for the Canadians, people live in Canada, they would love nothing more than to see a normal schedule where a U.S. team comes there and they go there and fans are in buildings there, and it means a lot to people. Gets their mind off their daily life and what's been going on in the world. So hopefully, the league can work it out with the Canadian government and if at least make an exemption for the Stanley Cup Final. Where they can allow it, because technically it's for work reasons. So maybe because of that, they allow it and ease the restrictions. But I'm hopeful that by then things will change and they don't have to do a neutral site because, that sucks. I mean, let's say you're the Hurricanes and you're playing the Maple Leafs in the Stanley Cup Finals. Those Hurricane fans get gypped out of a Stanley Cup Final game because they got to play in a neutral site because it wouldn't be fair if they're allowed home games and the Maple Leafs have to play, in Buffalo. So that would suck. So I'm hoping that it gets back to some sort of normalcy here, and I think the signs point in that direction. I mean, hell, I know it's the United States, but we live in one of the most liberal states in the United States, and today, you don't have to wear masks. So I went to the gym before. I went to True Value, and they were allowing people without masks. And let me say, it felt good. It felt good. It made you think, okay, we got to the end of the tunnel here and, life's going to be normal here. And, in a couple more months, it's going to be almost 100%. So I'm going to remain hopeful.
I, by the way, went out, got a bagel, and I had mine in my pocket just in case that the place needed me to put that on. And I did. So that's just it. And again, we understand there's bigger things than just hockey with this. So we're just talking about how this might affect teams. By the way, I never gave my answer. I guess I would have to say, you know what? I'm going to have to go buy everybody around. I think that could put everything in a disadvantage. But NHL has time. So does the Canadian government. Because if numbers keep going down, then they might let the quarantines go, especially if players are getting tested all the time. But it's always a great time doing this with you guys for the Bar Talk segment. You got any topics you want us to discuss next week or anything? You can always put them in the comments below. Leave a like, of course, share and subscribe. And how much were you drinking with us? Was there shots poured? Were there lots of beers? Or were you taking care of everybody as well? Be generous. Always try to buy around whenever you can. All right. Who wants to do the editorial first?
I'll go.
Okay. Everybody, here it goes.
They just do what they always do.
Why is he
Hold on. I'm getting rid of that banner first. Damn it. Fucking okay. Here we go again.
They just do what they always do.
Why is he putting Leo Komarov on the first line?
Welcome to the Rock.
So the Islanders are currently playing the playoffs right now, and playoff hockey is awesome. But one of my favorite topics is, the offseason in general, the draft, trades. And this year it's even more special because Seattle's coming into the league, which means the expansion draft. We saw the excitement that Vegas stirred up around their expansion draft and made it kind of like a scene out there in Vegas with their, premier player that they got, the new face of their franchise, which is Marc-Andre Fleury. So turn our attention to this year's expansion draft, the Seattle Kraken, and who will be their number one goalie, the foundation of their team. And if you look at this, if Vegas weren't exempt from the expansion draft, which I think is silly now, they've been in the league, 4 years, and you're telling me that they're still not strong enough they can have a player plucked off their team for free? I highly disagree with that, and that's a topic for another day. Or you boys can even chip in after I finish up here what your thoughts on that is. But when you look at Seattle, I think they're going to have a couple of options for their number one goalie. I look to the Los Angeles Kings is going to protect Cal Peterson. He's much younger than Jonathan Quick, and Jonathan Quick's game has fallen apart. However, he's a Stanley Cup champion just like Fleury was. So maybe the Seattle Kraken decide they're going to do the same path that Vegas did and select a veteran who has Cup experience to lead their team and be the face of the franchise. Again, the only difference is Quick isn't as good, and Fleury still is. So he's option for them. 2, I believe he actually is from Vancouver, which is close to Seattle. But even though the Canucks just signed Braden Holtby, word is that they're going to protect Thatcher Demko over Braden Holtby, making Braden Holtby exposed in the expansion draft. So he is another option for the Seattle Kraken to take. Again, like Quick, his game has fell off the last couple of years. He's not as prolific, but he is an option. He's a veteran, and he also has a Stanley Cup. So he's an option as well. Third option, which this one, I think, I don't necessarily too sold on it, but my beloved Islanders, the writing has been on the wall. Ilya Sorokin has been dubbed as the future number one goaltender. He has arrived. He has looked good. He has looked ready. The question is, are the New York Islanders ready to move on from Varlamov and hand the reins to Sorokin? It would help their cap situation as Varlamov makes $5 million per, and that would help the Islanders as they have to re-sign Adam Pelech as well as the aforementioned Ilya Sorokin. Question is, will Lou Lamoriello re-sign Corey Schneider to make him the goalie that they can eligible protect? And then, as obviously Sorokin's exempt, which would leave Varlamov exposed and plucked for the taking for Seattle. Out of all those 3 options, Varlamov is the youngest. He's still at top level. So in that regard, you would think he's the easy choice. But again, he may not be available. So, guys, am I missing any of the names? Probably. But to me, those are those 3 names for Seattle to take. The other option they could go is, and granted, they're going to have more than one goalie, so they can still do this. But they could go an unproven route. Like, for instance, if Toronto protects Frederik Andersen, they could take a gamble on Jack Campbell, who has been good in Toronto, and he could be their guy. So they can go that route too. But I just feel they may look at the Vegas method and take a veteran goaltender with Cup experience with a name, type of sexy name, to be their, not necessarily the face of their franchise, but to be a well-known guy in goal for them to start. My only thing is I don't trust Jonathan Quick anymore. Holtby, I'm ready to say he's not good anymore. I'm still going to say he's still an average goaltender. I'm not ready to say like kick him off to the curb, but again, his game has faltered. So Varlamov would be the best of the 3, but it's going to be interesting to see what they do. You know, I really do. But I think goaltending is critical, and I think that they need to make the right choice here, because if they take a veteran like Quick and he continues to falter even more, that could be disastrous for Seattle in their inaugural season.
I'll start this one first, John,
Okay.
because my first thought, and I had Anthony on a close-up, so you guys didn't see my reaction, but my first thought was, what? Vegas is exempt? Bullshit. You know, we're taking one of your guys. No. I mean, Vegas was in a perfect situation 3-4 years ago when they were able to take Marc-Andre Fleury still with something left in the tank, although you could argue he didn't have anything left in the tank back then. Marc-Andre Fleury, fantastic job in Vegas. And I think part of that had to do with him embracing his role in Vegas. Like Matt Murray might have been the best thing to rejuvenate his career. Oddly enough, 2 Stanley Cups as a backup, played well in the 2017 playoffs, and then 2018 was representing a brand new team, literally a brand new team in the Stanley Cup Finals. Braden Holtby is done. It's easy for me to say that, but I was and never was, and I'm not even good enough to be Braden Holtby. I don't know if I could score on Braden Holtby right now, but I'll tell you what. As far as an NHL star, nope. If Varlamov is gone, it's strictly a cat move, and we are going to do our picks or some kind of Seattle expansion draft when it comes up in 2 months show. But it's I'd have to learn more about other situations, see who's available, see who's not. Like take for instance, that would be interesting if the Islanders do that because they don't have to protect Sorokin because he's ineligible, and they would actually sign Corey Schneider, a guy that hasn't played an NHL game in 18 months, over Varlamov. But you said it yourself; you might need to do that just to juggle the roles. So, Mr. Fikowski.
Well, before you go, John? What about Jonathan Quick? You didn't say anything about him yet.
You know what? I'm sorry. I actually forgot to bring up Jonathan Quick because that's going to have a question that's in there. Jonathan Quick would be an interesting example. I think he's been battling injuries the last few years, and he hasn't been the same. So I would love it if Jonathan Quick could revitalize his career there. I don't know if that's going to happen. That's just it. I just don't know whether or not that's going to happen. By the way, when they talked about Jonathan Quick one time as being the greatest American goalie ever, possibly, on NHL Network on Sirius XM, they said, and at a time I find myself screaming at the radio, they said, what other American goalies got 2 Stanley Cups to their record? Anybody?
Tom Barrasso.
There we go. That's what I was screaming at my radio. I'm like, how do you guys know not know it's Tom Barrasso? He did it in back-to-back years.
I would argue that Barrasso wasn't the best. I mean, I know he won that Vezina, I believe, in '84, I believe it was. I know he won the Vezina earlier on in his career with Buffalo. I think it was either his rookie year or his second season with them. But, I mean, he played behind a real good team in Pittsburgh and got a lot of wins because of it. But I don't know if Tom Barrasso was really the best goalie out of all the Americans. Was he better than Mike Richter? Yes.
I don't think he is either. I was just arguing he had 2 cups.
Yeah, I mean, he had 2 cups, but I mean, I don't. If you're going to ask me, the best goalie at the peak would probably have been Ryan Miller, Ryan Miller or John Van Beesbrook, if you want to look at American-born goaltenders. So, I mean,
if you count international stuff, Mike Richter's in there.
John Gibson has the potential to absolutely take that over and be that next guy. But I mean, and even Connor Hellebuck already has a Vezina, and he's young. He's still got a lot of life, Connor Hellebuck. So he could win another Vezina and, possibly win a cup and then change everything. But getting back to like the actual question itself, I mean, here's some names to think about. And I personally would go after these guys. I mean, you could take a tandem of a starter and a backup of Anton Khudobin and Jake Allen and be paying $6 million for your goaltending altogether for like the next 2 years. I mean, Dallas has Bishop, and I mean, they have to protect Bishop because he has a no movement clause unless he agrees to waive that for whatever reason. So, or they trade him or whatever the case may be. But I mean, they have Ottinger and they have Khudobin. So, I mean, are they going to protect Khudobin or are they going to let Ottinger go? I mean, if Dallas lets Khudobin go unprotected, I would take Anton Khudobin in a heartbeat. I mean, Braden Holtby. I mean, you can see if he rebounds, but I mean, he's got life left on his contract. I mean, but Jake Allen is a really good option at backup, and he makes just under $3 million. And in a pinch, he could start for you if your starter falters. Like, let's just say it's Holtby and Allen, and Holtby falters. Allen's got experience as a starter. He's definitely one I could see. I can't see Jonathan Quick. I can't. It's just too much, too many injuries, too old. And then another one, Darcy Kemper. Darcy Kemper would be a real good one. Although I think Anaheim will protect him.
Arizona.
Snyder or Ronta. Because Ronta has only 1 year left. This is his last year, and then his contract goes. And Aiden Hill is a restricted free agent, so he's not even eligible. So they have to protect Kemper. But I mean, so I wouldn't even say actually I got to take Kemper back. But there's not a whole lot of great options in goaltending.
Let me throw this one out there for you guys. Because Anthony, you mentioned the Simeon Varlamov situation, and I checked to see if this guy had a no trade clause. He does, by the way. But Sergei Bobrovsky has not worked out in any way for Florida. Do you think Florida could actually approach him and say, "Do you want a clean start?" And the only reason why I even bring this up, I don't think it's likely. I don't think it's possible because who would want to go from Miami to Seattle? But you think they could actually approach him the same way the Penguins approached Fleury about waiving the no trade clause?
Oof. I mean, they just gave him that long-term commitment. I know he's a Russian dude. He spent a lot of time in Florida, even when he was with Columbus. So to pack up from sunny Florida to go to rainy Seattle, expansion team, I don't know. He might tell them to kick rocks. But hold on,
and he's got reason to.
If he has a no trade clause, he doesn't have to. If he has a no movement clause,
No, he has a no movement.
They're all no movements. They're all no movements.
So they have to protect them. I don't see him say yes to that. Which honestly, because of that may cause Florida to lose Chris Driedger, who's been really good for them. So that could be an option.
He's an unrestricted free agent.
Huh?
He's an unrestricted free agent. He's not expansion eligible.
But that's what Anthony said. They might lose him anyway on that.
Yeah, I mean, at that point, from Florida's viewpoint, looking at their makeup, it looks like Bobrovsky is going to be there, and then Knight is going to develop into, the backup, and then it's going to be like a Luongo Schneider type situation in Vancouver years ago, and then maybe at the end of his career, if Bobrovsky is faltering and he wants a fresh start, then maybe he goes and does something someplace else. Who knows, though? Maybe Bobrovsky turns it around and he turns into the Vezina caliber player when Aaron Ekblad gets back next season and Anton Stralman's off the book this year and they go get a solid defenseman to replace him. So who the hell knows?
Yeah.
By the way, to close out this segment, what about no love for the only Vezina Trophy winner? American-born Vezina Trophy winner in the 90s? Jim, the net detective Carey.
Oh, yeah. God. Yeah.
That guy went from, I think,
in the pen.
Just unbelievable flash in the pan. He came out of nowhere, then got traded, won the Vezina, got traded the following season, and he was out of the league, I think, within a year.
Yeah, that was Anson Carter. Him and Adam Oates went to Boston for Adam Oates.
Yeah,
and Jim Carey. Funny enough, he was one of two goaltenders that interrupted Dominic Hasek's 6 Vezinas in 8 years. Who was the other goaltender to win a Vezina in that 8-year span, other than Hasek?
Anthony, you want to do this? I got it, John. I'm pretty sure I got it.
Was it Olaf Kolzig?
Correct.
Olaf Kolzig.
Yeah.
I was gonna say if you didn't get it, I was gonna go with the irony of the guy
who played for the same
who
team.
took Jim Carey's job.
Yeah. Funny enough.
I mean, because by the way, it's amazing. Jim Carey would have these regular seasons, wouldn't be able to translate it into the playoffs. So, any ideas who you think Seattle should take? You know what to do. Put it in the comments below. Also, like, share, and subscribe. All right. Before we go on to Filk, we're going to go with an on the mark. This prediction that's right up here.
Being single most of my life.
Or just yell at Larry Brooks like every other New York Ranger. I did it again. Damn it. I'm doing it worse. This prediction that's right up here.
Being single most of my
Or
life.
just yell at Larry Brooks like every other New York Ranger. See, the hard part is when you forget to take off the banners, and much like most of my life, I was started by being a mistake. So I'm prone to making many of those. So, all right, this has been a great year for commentators and people that we've loved to listen to for a long time. But we've had to say goodbye to another one this week. And by that, it's farewell to Marv Albert. Marv Albert, one of the greatest sportscasters of all time. And people, first, John and I did a great segment about Mike Emmerich, who is probably the greatest hockey voice of all time. If not, he's on a very short list. I still love my Sam Rosen, but you know what? I got to like Mike Emmerich as much as possible. Check out that video. I'll be putting that in the link that's right above. But going back to Marv Albert, though, he is synonymous with basketball. And I know what people are saying right now. Why are you even talking about him? Well, because he was a versatile announcer. He did several other sports. What you might not know, Marv Albert, voice of the NBA, who especially in the 90s, was still doing Ranger games on the radio. I mean, he called Game 7 of the Stanley Cup Finals. I could still hear him saying, Zubov goes down, Kovalev's a Graves, he scores. I mean, I wish there was a yes, but he was doing that in the middle of doing the NBA Finals. I mean, of course, Marv Albert's legacy, Marv Albert's got a great legacy with hockey, but Marv Albert's legacy even goes further because his son Kenny has been the voice of the Rangers since 1996. I believe it was 96. It could have been like another year later. But Kenny Albert, who, of course, has been doing Ranger games for years, been doing the NHL on NBC. He does football on Fox. He does baseball on Fox. He got to learn from Marv Albert and several other great announcers. But back to Marv. Marv made basketball entertaining. And that's one of those legacies and one of those guys that his voice will stay with you forever. And I mean, I'm not going to talk about any the headlines from the 90s, but it's just Marv Albert. I have memories of him still announcing Ranger games in 1995 during that shortened season. And again, that's a guy that you're talking about when you're the voice of a sport, yet you're still doing radio for the other team that's in that building. That's amazing. And the question I'm going to turn to you guys. If you said top 5 announcers all time, and you can't pick doubles in your sports, so I guess you can. All right, just go with Filk. Who's your top 5 announcers? Top of your head.
Gary Thorne's been my favorite since I was a kid. I've loved Gary Thorne. I talked about it when we did the Emmerich video. Gary Thorne's my absolute favorite. I love it. I mean, his call when Don Mattingly hit the home run in the 95 playoffs was just incredible. I think Gary Thorne just has an energy that's just, it's a different type of energy from Emmerich. It's just, I don't know, you just can't match it. Emmerich would probably be number 2 or number 3 for me because, I mean, he just gets it. He gets the energy. He gets how to relay it. He can tell stories within the game and not go too far off tangents.
Something we have trouble with.
Yeah, we have a lot of trouble with tangents. Sorry, guys. We apologize. We're probably going to do it again, though, so just be aware. I would also say Bob Cole and Harry Neal. That combination together, it just incredible watching the old CBC playoff games. Just I would say it's just an incredible combination, those two. Who else would I put in my top 5? I would say John Davidson for color commentary. Just another one, just incredible. And then Sam Rosen, obviously. I know I look homerish there, but it just, these guys gave you a different feel. If you want guys that are out of my market that I think are just amazing, Randy Hahn is incredible in San Jose. He's still going, and he's been with them almost since the beginning. Bob Miller of the LA, used to be of the LA Kings. He retired a few years back. Bob Miller was great. He was actually the voice in the the Mighty Ducks D2 movie. If you remember that, that's Bob Miller's voice in that movie. So those are another 2 guys out of market. And then John Forsland, who has just been the voice of the Hartford Whalers and Carolina Hurricanes for God knows how long. I think he's been with that organization for like 25, maybe even more years. He's going to be the first announcer for the Seattle Kraken. Congratulations to him. Another all-time great voice. So just show you those are honorable mentions, guys that I love listening to and watching their games.
Just before I turn it over to Anthony for a second, I was talking about guys that had great versatility, and you mentioned Gary Thorne right off the bat. Gary Thorne as a baseball announcer, he's just as good as baseball as he is for hockey. And also Sam Rosen does a great job for football. Oh, he does great for football. Again, as I said, Kenny Albert, most versatile. He can do 4 different sports at 4 different days. Yeah. And that's what makes him amazing. And again, because his father was the same way. Marv Albert could announce anything. Anthony.
So for me, some of the guys that come top of my mind, best announcers, Doc Emmerich. I love Doc Emmerich. I think he's the greatest hockey play-by-play for my money. I like Vince Scully. I think Vince Scully was great. I just, not that I heard him on a daily basis, but, every time you heard him call a baseball game, he just had that voice that kind of drew you in. I loved listening to him. Growing up, Jiggs McDonald, before Harry Rose took over, Islander play-by-play guy. I think he's actually in the Hockey Hall of Fame for play-by-play. He was great. Childhood memories. Him and Ed Westfall doing games together. I'll always remember him. I liked Harry Rose a lot, but when Jiggs left, it felt like a little bit of a gut punch. Then football, I like Pat Summerall. I thought Pat Summerall and John Madden were good together. He even did the commentary in the Sega Genesis video games. He just had that voice that it was kind of like he was big. What do you know about Brett Favre, John? His voice was just it was just great. I guess not only from listening to him on the TV, but just all the years of playing like the NFL video games, hearing him, I just kind of had a fond memory of him. And then of course Gary Thorne too, his baseball versatility along with the hockey, his Paul Correa call when Correa got flattened by Scott.
That's still his best.
Memorable. Which, by the way, Paul Correa would have never saw the ice again if that was in today's game. He would have been in concussion protocol for days. He would have never came back. But yeah, he was great too. So those are kind of the names that came to mind for me. It's great. That's a hard job to do. So all these guys, they made it their craft, and they provided us all with so many memories. It's you think of countless calls that you could kind of like play in your head or bring up on YouTube just to hear the commentary on it. But as far as Marv Albert goes, I'm not a basketball fan at all anymore, but I would say the mid to late 90s, like 90, 96, 97, 98. That was probably the last time I really followed basketball, but I always knew Marv Albert was known for his he used to do a lot of the Knick games and his patented yes. But no, he was great. He was great at what he did, and so was his son.
Yeah, I would say Mike Breen also in the NBA is just he's wonderful to listen to. He's been great for the Knicks. But in hockey, someone who's really on the rise for me, and I actually like him when he's away from his normal partner a lot more because he's really good at what he does is Brendan Burke. Brendan Burke, for me, when he's on national, is awesome to listen to. I think he's got the voice for it. Mm-hmm. He's got the energy. He's really good. Like, he's one of those guys where, like, if Sam Rosen left, I would want him at the top of my team's list to call Rangers game. I mean, Howie Rose obviously would be the guy that would want to replace him just because of the fact that, you know, Howie's been wanting that job for years. We all know he's wanted Sam's job. That's been his lifelong dream. No offense to Sam or anything like that. And Howie's obviously not cutthroat about it, but we all know Howie Rose is a Ranger fan. We know the call. I don't even have to mention the name. We all know the call. So, but Brendan Burke is phenomenal at what he does today when he's away from Butch Goring, and it's. I like listening to him, especially when he's not calling the Islanders, because he's great at what he does. You really get to see him in his element.
I often say about Brendan Burke before I get into my five, about his energy that he brings is about the closest to Mike Emmerich possibly ever, because he does kind of, the moment kind of builds, and he'll just, and I love his goal call. I think it's great. Because I mean, there were other guys that are understated like that. Like I'll keep going back to Kenny Albert. Kenny Albert is like, and he scores. You never have to worry about it getting too big. My all-time guys. You know what? You were bringing up Pat Summerall. I got to go with Pat Summerall as one of them, because after all, not only can he call a game very well, but also you could hear him and just say, coming up afterwards, 60 minutes and murder, she wrote. and also hearing him in Golden Tee for years when I was playing that. Where it's
the arcade.
Welcome to Mystic Hills and the sky is ominous. It sure is that. Or of course, there was also Keith Jackson, who also did a great job with college football and also with Major League Baseball when he was doing it for ABC. Al Michaels, right there. Al Michaels, phenomenal. Everything he's ever done. One of the most famous calls of all time. Obviously, Do You Believe in Miracles? And Mike Emmerich. Mike Emmerich, who could be candid, it would be a wordsmith, skeetered, drubbed. I'm trying to think of all the different names. Feathered a pass across. I mean, he waffle boarded away. There were so many different adjectives that he had for the moment, and yeah. Actually, you know what? I have an idea. If I could ever sit down and do it, Mike Emmerich calling golf, where it just balls will rim out and it will not go. Pitching.
I know you guys probably hated this one, but his Henrique it's over call against the Devils was one of his like more well-known ones in 2012.
Yeah.
Yeah, no. Oh, yeah. I hate it for the memory. I like it for the call.
Well, so, yeah, I'm not being like a dick. I'm just saying that was one of his more like one of his ones that got over the years.
I just have to mess with you.
And then lastly, it's Marv, because in no particular order I'm saying these guys, because of course you can't help but think about the NBA in the 90s was in all of its glory, and then it's Jordan from way downtown. Yes. Like, how does it get better than that? How does it get better than that? I know I'm just saying one sentence, but it always was the best. You know what? And now the bell's rung, and you can't ring the bell anymore, and it's just
That's a good one.
Which it's good that the NHL is bringing back the ESPN theme. I would love to find out what TNT is going to do with their theme.
I love that.
They'll probably have Andrew Ferentz helping to make that. Seriously, guys, Andrew Ferentz. That's what you came up with. I still have to answer the comment for the other guy just to let him know. Yeah, I still can't believe they had it on there. All right. John, do you have one?
Yes, I do.
Okay. First, let me make sure there's no banners up. And here we go.
Then there's no. I'm looking at you, Jim.
I'm going to hear the name and I'm going to get PTSD.
But the cream will rise to the top for you.
Oh, yeah.
I just love how Randy always leads me in. It's great. I love Randy. I really do. Rest in peace, Macho. But my editorial, or my Filkin opinion this week, would be about playoff hockey and the style of hockey we've seen played in the Tampa and Florida series. And online, I've noticed in social media that it's devolved into a discussion with two different types of parties. We have a more progressive party that wants the violence out of hockey. Some say they want to make hockey more like figure skating. And the other side of it that wants more physicality. And some might say that they want the goons back in the 5 fights per game out of nowhere. And yeah, we all grew up watching hockey in the 90s. You obviously got to see probably the latter part of the 80s. But I loved 90s hockey. I did. The names, just like 90s basketball. The names, everything, the sounds, the people calling it. But there is a thin line to walk between wanting yesterday back and wanting what we have today to stick. And I don't want to get into the Tom Wilson incident because that's, again, another dead horse to be beaten. But there is a line to walk with this. And it speaks to the construction of the Rangers roster that they didn't have the physicality or the toughness to be in a series like this. Could you imagine the Rangers facing either one of Florida or Tampa in the first round? Or even in, like, if somehow they got to, like, the conference, whatever conference finals, how they're running it this year, if they had to play that division and they had to play one of Florida or Tampa or something like that, they couldn't do it. They'd get waxed because there's no physicality. And yes, I know that the Rangers drafted Braden Schneider and Will Cooley with the pretense, and even Brett Berard, who I think could end up being like maybe a Brandon Tanev type, maybe slightly more skilled type than someone like him. But you need that grit, that tenacity, that north-south play to win in the playoffs. And the Tampa-Florida series is showing us that it can be very, very entertaining to have that with the mix of the skill. Because we don't want to forsake the skill, especially on a new TV deal. We want to highlight our star players. Hey, NHL player safety, get on protecting them. Get on your ass and protect them. So, yeah, we want to highlight our skill and our speed, but we also want to show the casual fans that hockey is a physical sport. It's always meant to be a physical sport, but it's not meant to be a brutally violent sport like what's happened towards the end of the season. But when you give me Florida and Tampa and what they've done in these first 2 games, and the rest of the playoffs are like that, ratings are going to go up. And that's only going to be good for those 2 new TV deals. And just remember, I mean, wrestling, AEW, All Elite Wrestling, is moving from TNT to TBS. And the NHL is going to have TNT to itself. So maybe there is going to be a Wednesday night hockey on TNT. I mean, I don't know exactly what their plans are yet, but we've got playoff hockey here that should be the example of what the NHL should strive for. And the New York Rangers should take notes because that's what it's going to take to get to that next level, to be that team. And I'm not saying, just completely ditch the skill, just start drafting gritty players, more toughness, rah, rah, rah. No, blend it in. Blend it in. And that's what the NHL should do. Blend it in. Key on getting the brutal violence, the Tom Wilson garbage out of the game, and make sure that the physicality still stands. And you know what? Fights are going to happen. So don't try to remove fighting completely. Let it happen organically. The game will sort itself out, but we need this type of hockey going forward on these next TV deals, because that's what's going to get the casual fan back in. That's what's going to generate interest. And, for the people who aren't watching hockey because they're Ranger fans or a fan of another team that's out of it and they're disinterested, I feel bad for you, because so far you picked the wrong postseason to not watch.
Anthony.
So, yeah, playoff. There's nothing like playoff hockey. Playoff hockey is, simply put, there's really nothing else like it really in any other sport. The stakes rise a lot, and the players step their games up. The problem is, with as good as playoff hockey is, you're never going to see playoff style hockey consistently during the course of the regular season, because players they get to another level during the playoffs. During the playoffs, literally everyone finishes checks, whether you're Matt Martin or Sidney Crosby. Everyone finishes their checks in playoff hockey. Everyone's battling extra hard in the corners. Everyone's taking jabs after the whistle. It's got so much intensity that it could just combust and go into a mayhem at any time, which is great. It's because there's a difference. There's nothing when this stuff like that happens. Like John said, it happens organically. There's nothing dirty about it. Players just want to win so bad that shit boils over, and you see the scrums, and it's awesome, because when you combine it with the fast-paced action up and down with the skill, it's better than reality TV in the sense that you don't know what's going to happen. Anything can happen at any moment, and it's fabulous to watch. And as far as like getting fighting out of the game, that's the wrong thing to do, because when a fight happens just because of a heated play or something happened earlier in the game, like organically that way, that's what's good. The fighting I don't like to see is like, the old days. Let's say, Mick Vukota and Bob Probert decide before the game, we're just gonna fight when we're on the ice just for the hell of it, just to do it. Like, that's the type of fighting that I think it doesn't really have to be in the game. I like it when it just happens through the course of the game. You particularly don't like a hit that Clutterbuck put on Malkin, then someone else goes after him and they settle it. That's the type of stuff that I like. The fighting I could just describe, but that has no point in the game anymore, really. That's the dinosaur level type of mentality that needs to be removed. But it absolutely has a place in the game. Like I said, it's a way of the players policing themselves. And it's just, what, the one thing I love about playoff hockey is, and I always say, if you're a fan of it, it's stressful and why you hate it, but overtime playoff hockey is the best type of hockey there is. You're literally, you're holding your breath the whole time. You're not sitting down. I remember last year, it was game 5 when Eberle scored in was it? Yeah, I think it was double overtime.
Double overtime, yeah.
I remember that whole overtime. I literally was not sitting on the couch. I was in the area. I was just walking behind it. It was just, that's what it does to you. It's so stressful, but it's at the same time it's fun. But my God, it's to see the two different outcomes. You either have one person and one team that's just pure jubilation, and on the other side you just feel crushed, and it sucks, but it's beautiful at the same time. It really is. And there's nothing like that. There's absolutely nothing like that. And you guys could test. The Rangers had long playoff runs going overtime, and it's just killer, because at any minute you're gonna be tears of joy or just tears of sadness. And like I said, there's nothing else that can really come close to that type of feeling. Just playoff hockey encompassing as a whole, it's the best. And I hope that this playoffs finishes that way, but next year, come ESPN and TNT, I hope everybody else notices what playoff hockey is, because on a higher elevation of more visible people watching the game, I hope it creates a lot more growth and a lot more fans.
And being promoted by ESPN instead of being shucked to the X block.
Yep.
That it would have been there. Like they'll report on Animal X Games before the NHL. You know what? You were talking about overtime. There is nothing better and worse at the same time than overtime hockey. because you're watching that. But once you lose, as you want to talk about a Mike Emmer call that was fantastic, but I still have trouble watching it. It's the Alec Martinez goal.
I knew you were saying that.
And I have trouble. I have trouble watching it, even though it's a great call, because I still remember me having my first ever playoff goatee. Because as you can tell, I don't exactly grow in that much facial hair. So I did grow a full beard, but it was like a chin strap the next year. I guess I'll put a picture of it up when I edit this out. But just being in Las Vegas, having that playoff goatee, arguing with LA fans that were there during the game, and they going up to the room, watching the second overtime, seeing that goal scored. And I thank God I had aluminum cans of beer, because those things were getting whipped around the hotel room. I didn't want to talk to anybody. And the first thing I did was walk across to my room, because I was in my friend's room watching the game. And I walked into my room. I went right in the shower and I shaved my beard. So it's, I did actually stop to take pictures of me with the Yosemite Sam beard, with a little soul patch, with, it's a little bit kookiness on my part. But yeah, John, the playoffs are more about grinded out hockey, not goonery, not violence, not dirty hits. That's what makes the playoffs great. And yeah, the stars come out, the stars get the shine at times. You get to see the skill of the game with some guys, but also those skill guys have to fight through it. They're going to get hit. They're going to get hurt. Nobody's 100%. Imagine if 2015, two things happened. Ryan McDonough had his treatment take for his foot, and Matt Zuccarello wore ear guards. I mean, that could have been a lot different. But again, that's just it. The injuries happen. You have to fight through it. Good teams have the depth. They adjust. I mean, look at what the Islanders are doing right now with the Penguins. They threw 72 hits in game one. I didn't get the number for last night. I forgot to. Like, that's incredible. And the Penguins weren't exactly shying away from hitting. Like, Brandon Tanev was everywhere. There's so many, and again, all this is still there. Then you get like the Bobby Ryan goal in 2014 that was amazing.
The 11 goals against Nashville.
Oh yeah, it might have been. Sorry, it might have.
Was just ridiculous. Oh my God.
Like, I mean, and that's what produces these moments. And sometimes you get the overtime with the great moments. Marty St. Louis for us in 2014.
I was there for that.
Yeah, so was I. And a matter of fact, I was looking down from the bridge. So, and when I saw that, I went absolutely crazy. I mean, I still remember sitting at home in 2008, and my father just kind of, he wasn't even much of a hockey fan. He would pay attention a little bit, so we had something to talk about with me. But that's when the Michael Roosevelt happened, and it came out of nowhere.
2007, sorry.
2007, yeah. I said 2008 first. I always want to put that one more year later, but it's not. That's when Drury was there, and Marian Hossa eliminated us in the playoffs. But and again, that was one of those moments. Ever since you get that, you just go, yeah, screaming all over the place.
I was at the Coliseum in 2015, Game 3 against Washington, when Tavares scored 12 seconds into overtime, and that was my first ever playoff overtime game. And I remember I turned to my wife and I'm like, this better end quick, because even on TV, I stress out so much of this. I can't imagine what it's going to be like in person. Lo and behold, it ended in 12 seconds. So that was perfect. But yeah, that feeling where like that rush, that everyone at once stands up and all you hear is, yeah. It was just, it's unbelievable. It really is.
Yeah, I was also there for Carl Hagelin's Game 5 series clincher in OT against Pittsburgh, and that turnaround shot. Funny enough, he scored on the same exact type of shot in the same exact location in Mika Zibanejad's 5-goal game against the Capitals last. So it just a funny fact I like bringing up, because it literally when that goal happened, I was like, I just got a case of deja vu, a real strange one, if you will. But
again, this, and you guys remember I had this on my Facebook status. Islanders Pittsburgh game 1 is the reason why playoff hockey has no equal. The only thing that even can come close is a well executed baseball game to me. Because, and I know discounting basketball, discounting football, it's just, and baseball isn't sudden death the way hockey is. It's more of the chess match. It's more of watching, and I'm not even going to point out Mets game 6, 1986. I was going to point out game 6, St. Louis versus Texas, 2011. That was just brilliant to watch. But going back to the hockey part of it, I watched game 1 the other night, the other afternoon, and again, I'm like, Pittsburgh's got this game. Oh, the Islanders decided. Oh, the Islanders took the lead. All right, well, the Islanders are going to win this. Oh, Pittsburgh just tied it. All right, now we're in overtime. Now it's any shot can go. So, just Anthony, give me your final thought before Phil can give his.
My final thought is, I would love to see this style of hockey for all 82 games. I know that's not feasible or sustainable. Players just play differently for the playoffs. But with that said, that's why I cherish every single playoff game. I watch as many as I can. It's just so entertaining. And I hope that the rest of these playoffs, when the other Canadian series kick off, it just has the same type of atmosphere even more. I mean, what sucks for them is there's no fans in any of those games. Whereas a lot of the other teams are seeing a substantial amount of fans now. The Hurricane game the other day, they had over 12,000. That looked like, it wasn't full of capacity, but you wouldn't think it by listening to it and hearing it. It was crazy there. So I'm excited for it. The other series has to bring. I think it's great, and hopefully, we get treated some like triple overtime games.
Wrap it up, Filk.
That's what I've been asking for. Those 3, 4, 5 OT games. I'll never
Not
forget.
The Islanders, though. No.
Oh no, I want all of the 3, 4 games. Oh, all of them. Come to Papa. Yeah, give me all those games. I mean, I know you guys remember Keith Primo in 2000, the Flyers and the Penguins game 5, and how that went 5 OTs. I think that was like a 12:30 in the morning or almost 1 o'clock in the morning.
Later, I believe it was 1:30.
1:30, yeah. I mean, I remember staying up for that. I mean, even Stefan Matteau's double OT winner was later than I should have been up on a school night. I mean, Anaheim and Dallas in game, I think that game 3 or 4 in 2003. I can't remember which game that was, but that went 5 OTs. They had a 3 OT game against Detroit in the series before, I believe. Those games, and even something more recent for Ranger fans, Marian Gabourik's triple overtime winner against Washington in 2012. Yep. I remember that ending at I think a quarter after 12, close to 12:30 that night. I think it was like a Wednesday night, if I remember correctly.
It was.
Yeah. So it just staying up to watch those games. It reminds me of being a kid again also as well. It gives us, those fond memories of staying up for those games, especially when it got later in the summer and, school was dying down and you had half days and your parents will let you stay up to watch the games and stuff like that. And I've missed it. And I think getting fans back just definitely helps. So yeah, I hope the Canadian series are really good in terms of play quality because the fans aren't there, so it's got to make up for it.
Oh, what about, let's ask you this guy's questions. Wait till you see, hopefully one day soon, an Islander Ranger double overtime playoff game. You want to talk about intense and nail biting? That one, I don't know if I'd be able to watch that one. I really might have to just turn off the TV and keep checking refresh on the NHL app, honestly, because that one.
Well, hopefully, if that happens, we'll be doing a live stream as we're watching the game because that can only be interesting. And the other thing to mention with that is because it's been, almost 40 years since the last time we've had a good Islander Rangers series. And I mean a good one because it's already been 27 years since the Rangers swept the Islanders. And before that, the Islanders only had a win versus them in 90. What was that, Filk?
It has been 27. That was April of 94.
Yeah. And then in 1990, it was when they played each other and the Rangers won in 5.
But that was a better series than the 94 one. That was more competitive than 90.
Well, that also featured, speaking about which, another one that's the Pat LaFontaine thing. So we already went over that in a previous video.
I was only 5 years old there in 90, so like I don't even really.
Yeah,
I remember 94, but I don't remember that.
I don't remember watching it either. Like when I was that young, I wasn't watching it then. But like, just I've seen the games on classic clips and classic games, and it was a pretty good series, I would say. More competitive than 94 was. 94 was just a blowout.
Yeah, 94 they just trounced them, and that's probably still the biggest surprise for me predicting any NHL playoff game of all time, because even I thought the Rangers were in for a battle and they rolled them. That was just amazing.
Yeah, at that point in 90, the Islanders were just barely hanging on to their glory days. A lot of their guys had, because I think by 90, I don't know, Bossy was gone. I think Potvin might have 89 or 90. I think.
They were all gone. All the big guys were gone. Trottier was over in Pittsburgh.
Yeah.
Yeah, Trottier was in Pittsburgh. The big guy was LaFontaine back then, but then they flipped LaFontaine
for Turgeon 192.
Yeah, Turgeon, and that reignited them for a little bit. And they sent Kelly Rudy to L.A., got back Glenn Healy, and they also signed, I think it was Marc Fitzpatrick, where they got them both for that trade. I forget. Yeah. The Islanders kind of reworked their team a lot in the late 90s and ended up doing early 90s. I mean, and obviously 93 came out of that, their rookie class that they had at that time with Malakhov and Kasparaitis was immensely important. It's just by the time 95 came in and Maloney just, I guess, ran out of gas. I don't know how else to describe it. He didn't really have anybody coming through the pipeline. Brad Delgarno was there were so many misfires in the draft. Dean Chenault, Dave Shazowski, and then you look back and go, oh, you could have been Adam Graves, Joe Sakic, or Roland Nolan.
Yeah.
It's just
Brett Lindros,
Scott LaChance, Brett Lindros. And that's one thing that's going to be good and bad at the same time if they change the format next year to go away from divisional play, because then there's lessens the chance of the Rangers Islanders. But then again, the first time they did that, we got Rangers Islanders. So there we go. So, all right. You just heard us ramble on about this for a little bit. What are your thoughts about how good playoff hockey is and what's the best part and what's the worst part for you? So, leave your thoughts down below, like, share, and subscribe, because that's why we do this. We do this for you. Also to maintain our sanity, because if I don't rant to somebody, then it's got to be happening at work and people don't want to hear me anymore. So, all right, guys. I think this could actually end our broadcast for today. Unless anybody's got anything else.
No.
All right.
Well,
Anthony,
think about this
able
actually,
to.
Nick, but when we record next week, we could either be talking about the Islanders being eliminated, moving on, because it's 1-1. You got Thursday, Saturday, and Monday are their next 3 games. So technically, by the next time we record, the series could be over, or it could be going on to game 6 or so. So,
John, you got a prediction on that?
We'll see.
What?
By next Wednesday. Actually, wait, that's not Memorial Day yet, is it? All right, because
No,
I might have to talk to you guys about filming on a Sunday, the 30th, but still. By next Wednesday when we record, or Tuesday if we do it on the off day, are the Islanders still going to be playing? Or are they going to be either done with their series because they lost or done with their series because they won?
I think that they're going to be still playing. I think that I know I said Islanders in 6, but this has been a lot more of an even series than I thought it was going to be. So I think they're still going to be playing.
Unfortunately, I would need it to end right here for my prediction to go well. But I'm kind of hoping that we have a game 6 to talk about, and potentially we could figure out about doing a post-game show that night. Or I would love to do a post-game show for any of these, but I'm working, unfortunately, right after the end of game 4, working at the end of game 5, working games. All right, I'm off of that. So, actually, before we close out and end the broadcast, all right, what's your predictions on the next 3 games, guys?
So, I'm gonna say the Islanders. I think they're going to take both at the barn to go up 3-1, but then Pittsburgh's going to win Game 5 in Pittsburgh to make it 3-2, and then the Islanders are going to close it out in the barn in Game 6 to move on.
John,
I think they're going to split on the island. I think Pittsburgh has confidence that they can actually play more of an Islanders type game, and their depth is just playing well right now. I think the Islanders, I don't want to say they don't have an answer for it, but they're definitely having a little bit of trouble with it. I think, like I said, the series is a lot closer than I thought it was going to be. I thought the Islanders were going to take a commanding lead right off the bat. I thought they were going to take the 2-0 lead. Maybe Pittsburgh would take a game or two at that point, but I think they're going to split these next 2 games, and then I think the Islanders will win Game 5 when they go back to Pittsburgh, and I think they'll be up 3-2 then with a chance to close out the series.
Anthony, I'm not going to help your blood pressure on this. I think it's going to be a split at the Coliseum, and at least one of those games goes to overtime. So, I'm. You know what? If you're going to mad me, damn it! If I was going to make a prediction, I'll make this prediction. Evgeny Malkin returns to this series, and you know what? We'll do this. Jason Zucker scores the overtime goal in Game 4. I mean, I still think they're going to split, but I would love it if that comes true, because I'm going to be awesome.
All right.
If that happens. But yeah, because it's that's the way hockey is always written. It's the most unlikely hero comes up and is an overtime winner and look like Peter Klima. So
in 1990, yeah,
he wasn't even involved in a triple overtime game, and he had his helmet unstrapped. Throw him on the ice, scores a goal.
Yep.
All right, everybody, thank you very much for joining us. We will see you next week. We have lots to talk about. Hopefully, we have more news on the Rangers. Looking for a new coach. Of course, we're going to do our talk around the league. And I'll be cutting this up for you probably in about another 30 minutes. Talk to you soon. Like, share, and subscribe. Thank you very much for following us.
Have a good night.